So it's interestingly enough, what the pasuk says that Shlomo Melech is actually a crazy pasuk. Shlomo built a mizbeach for Kamosh, who was one of the deities, one of the idolatries of Moab. Does that mean that Shlomo will build an actual mizbeach for Avodah Zarah? Ella ma'ala alav akasav ki'ilu bana. So that's a different pasuk. Shlomo Melech never has built a mizbeach for Avodah Zarah. I said, why does it say that he did? Shlomo Melech did not curb the Avodah Zarah appetites of his wives. And as a result, his wives worshipped idolatry in his home, and he did nothing to stop it. Because he did nothing to stop his errant behavior in his home, he's held accountable as if he did it himself. Incredible. From where do you know about Tchias HaMesim Torah? So the Shneimar, Ashrei, Yoshemei, Secha, Od Yahalam, Luchasela. It's a beautiful telling. So literally, praiseworthy are those who dwell in your home. Right? They will go ahead and praise you. So the Gemara says, it doesn't say they praise you present, rather what does it say? Future tense. They will praise you. They will praise you. So what is this future praising? Future praising is a remiss to Tchias HaMesim. Beautiful. Says the Gemara, beautiful Gemara. Whoever says Shira, whoever sings to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, will be privileged ultimately again to sing Shira in the world to come. Shneimar, Ashrei Yosher Nesecha Od Yahalam. So there's so much to say about this Gemara. What does it mean if you say Shira in this world? You sing praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. Ultimately, again, you will sing the Tchias HaMesim on the most basic, on Olam Haba, on what it means to say. The Olam Haba you have is a direct reflection of the Olam Hazeh you create for yourself. There's another piece to this as well. I'll say, what is Olam Haba? What is Olam Haba? The Rambam writes, Olam Haba is Tzadikim Yoshvin v'Ataraseim b'Rashem v'Nanim Mizivashchina. So ultimately, again, the righteous sit. Right? They sit around the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The deeds of the crown of their good deeds is upon their head, and they derive benefit from the Shekhinah. That's Olam Haba. I will say, there's sometimes a person reads that and they're like, is there like a tea room? Is there like a shweki coming? Is a cholam? Is that it? Is that it? And also, a lot of times you see it and like, yeah. That sounds really good. Right. Olam Haba is only meaningful if at the end of the day, you value a relationship with Hashem and Olam Hazeh. If a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not my priority in this world, then Olam Haba doesn't look all that appealing. Because all Olam Haba is connection to Hashem. So if that is something that I value in this world, and I strive for in this world, then Olam Haba is something amazing. But if Olam Hazeh really is much more all about the material, and all about the enjoyment, and all about the stuff, and all about the acquisitions, which are beautiful and important, but if that's pretty much what life is all about, Olam Haba is a big letdown, a tremendous letdown. So it's interesting. If you want to enjoy Olam Haba, my Olam Hazeh has to look a certain way. And perhaps that's the Gemara saying over here as well. If you see Shira in this world, right, in other words, if this life is about connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then at the end of the day, Olam Haba will be great. But if not, if Olam Hazeh really is just about the material, or just about the mundane, Olam Haba doesn't sound all that exciting to you. So once again, the voices of Tzofech, of those of your Nevi'im, of those who see you, right? They will go ahead and call out your name. They will praise you. Future tense. Once again, future tense, not present. So this is so beautiful. In the future, all of the Nevi'im will say Shira with one voice. Also, how beautiful is that? All the Nevi'im speaking in one voice, right? All the leaders of Klal Yisrael speaking in one voice. How incredible is that? How overwhelming is that? How beautiful. That's the most Mashiach. As we saw, remember, every Nevi'im is different. We saw this already before. But nevertheless, speaking in one unified voice. Amar Yehuda, Amar Rav. Kol Moreh Halacha B'Talmud, Ki'ilu goes lo minachal asavosa. So I'll say this is profound. If a person is capable of teaching Torah, but withholds their Torah from their Talmud. Withholds Torah from the Talmud. Everyone say, this could be a Rebbe, this could be a parent, this could be anyone. Whereas I have the ability to impart Torah upon someone, but I don't do it. I withhold it. It's as if you're stealing that person's inheritance. Isn't that incredible? So one second. So again, I have the ability to convey Torah to someone. I don't convey it. It's as if I'm stealing your inheritance. Shne'emar Torah tziva lanu Moshe morasha kehilas Yaakov. Morasha he l'chol Yisrael mishesh shnei bereishis. So once you hear how the pasuk refers to Torah, it's a morasha. Morasha is an inheritance. It's our inheritance from the beginning of time. From Sheshas Yimei Bereishis. Rashi points out there was in Mishesh Shnei Bereishis. So again, Rashi points out the Sid Bereishis Bara B'Shirator Shnik Bereishis. Remember Rashi, first Rashi in Torah. Bereishis Bara. What does it mean Bereishis? In the beginning, Hashem created. Bereishis is a contraction. B'shvil Reishis, because of that which was created first, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. The world was created for Torah. Torah was given to Klal Yisrael, and therefore, again, if I withhold the Torah from someone who I can give it to, it's as if I'm taking their inheritance. Amr Rav Bar Tzibizna, Amr Rav Shimon Chasida. Kalmarei halakha v'talmid. If a Rebbe withholds a halakha from a Talmud, in other words, a Rebbe has an ability to teach a Talmud, and he doesn't do so, listen to this. Such a Rebbe is cursed even by fetuses in utero. Sometimes. Shne'emar monei abar tap of tzadik beis. Monei abar yikavu la'om. Ve'ein la'om ela ubrin la'om means ubrin fetuses. Shne'emar u'la'om la'om li'amas. Ve'ein kavo ela klova. Kavo means cursing. Shne'emar ma'akov lo kavo ker by Bilam. Ve'ein bar ela Torah. Bar means cursing. Shne'emar nosh bar pen yada. Someone's like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Someone who doesn't hurt. Doesn't say that like someone who's Mechal Shabbos is cursed even by fetuses. What does it mean? So the Rebbe didn't teach. The Rebbe didn't teach the Talmud Torah, and therefore what? And therefore he's cursed even by the fetuses. Like what's the shot with that? Well, say sometimes the worst thing that a person could do is withhold the growth opportunity from someone else. Because we make a mistake that sometimes the greatest things we accomplish are the things we do for ourselves. And that's not true. Sometimes the greatest things you do in life is the growth that you enable in the other. When you do something for someone else, so what is it we're talking about here? A Rebbe has an opportunity to teach a Talmud. A Rebbe has an opportunity to give over halacha to a Talmud, which means you have the ability to be the enabler of someone else's growth. And I don't do that. That's an abdication of the highest level of personalistic responsibility. That's my avoda. Our avoda in life is not only to enable our own growth, but it's to enable the growth of others. And failure to do so, the world pushes you through that. Incredible. So now goes like Ula bar Yishmael Omer, if you don't, right, if you withhold Torah from the student, literally again, so it means they pierce you like a seed. Okay, and let's say now what Rashi points out with this, what does it mean pierce like a seed? It means you forget your learning. Just like right, if you put something into a seed, the content is filtered through. A Rebbe who doesn't share his Torah with other people loses his learning. Because if he doesn't share it, what does that show? That shows that he thinks that his Torah is his. His Torah is not yours. Nothing. In life, nothing is mine. Right? Money that he gives me ultimately to do good for others, or again, it's my Torah that he gives me to convey to others. That's the whole of life, and therefore, if I don't share my Torah with others, ultimately, I lose it. Ula bar Yishmael Omer Menachem is good. Ksiv Hacha Yikavu La'om Ksiv Hasam Vayikol for Vidalto Va'amar Abaye Ki Ochla Dipitziri. Literally perforated like a long brewer's days. All right, in Lumdo. And what happens if you teach someone Torah? The Torah says, this is all the punishment if you withhold Torah. What happens if a Rebbe fulfills his obligation and teaches his Talmidim Torah? What's his reward? Amar Rav Shimon says, Zocha Rebechas Yosef. It's incredible. So such a Rebbe, everyone say, when we see a Rebbe, I just want to point out, a Rebbe doesn't have to be a rabbi. Doesn't have to be a Rebbe, right? A Rebbe is anyone who has the ability to give over Torah to someone. So you take your Torah and you share it. Also, I can't tell you how important this is. One of the most incredible things that sometimes we don't realize that we have the ability to do is to have a chavrusa with someone. And especially sometimes, again, there are different types of chavrusas. Sometimes there's a chavrusa and both of you are on the same level. Because you have a chavrusa with someone and you have the opportunity to really help someone grow in their learning. You become a Rebbe. It's a Rebbe chavrusa. It's a Rebbe chavrusa partnership. And I will say that is the most profound thing. You think whenever we see these Gemara, you're like, automatically, shit, oh, he's talking about a Rebbe, a Rabbi, a Rebbe. No, this is every single one of us. If you take all of us have Torah, and all of us can convey it, and if you convey that Torah, what happens? Zoka l'brachos ki Yosef. You are privileged to have brachos like Yosef. Shene Emar, u'bracha l'rosh mashpir. Ve'im mashpir elo Yosef. Yashuzah Shene Emar, Yosef was shalit ala aretz. Hu'a mashpir l'chol ama aretz. So we'll say, by the way, so what's the pshat? What's the pshat if someone shares their Torah? They get brachas like Yosef. Why not bracha like Avram? Why bracha like Yosef? What was the entire abode of Yosef? Yosef took his brachas, and what did Yosef do with his brachas? What did he do with it? He shared it with everyone else. That was the entire essence of Yosef. But Yosef, after everything that he had been through, had every right to say, forget about the rest of you. I'm not going to take revenge. I'm not helping you. I'm not doing anything for you. But instead, every single bracha that comes Yosef's way, what does he do? He takes it and he uses it to help the other. That was Yosef. That was Yosef Atzadik. I'm going to change this. Kalamalavi is beautiful. Kalamalavi Torah Olam Hazeh, Zocha Umalam Deli Olam Haba. Wow. Let's say whoever teaches Torah in this world is Zocha to teach it in the world to come. Now, by the way, what does that mean? Once again, remember, we always come back to our question of what's Olam Haba? What does it mean? Is Olam Haba where you go when you die? Is Olam Haba the Messianic era? Either way, it's really good. Either way, it's really good. Right? They will say that if you teach Torah in this world, so you recommend them to teach Torah in Olam Haba as well, which I will say hopefully means also that the people you learn Torah with, or people you learn Torah with, and then you'll be zochah to learn in this world and next world. Can you imagine? We have our Chabura, we have our Shem in Olam Haba. I feel like we'll be able to move faster, right? But I don't know how to move faster. But yes, Hashem will say, how incredible would that be? So the Gemara goes like the Shnei Amar. Vasik says, so there's no time in Olam Haba. At least in the afterlife of death, right? That'll be better. The Gemara says, Shnei Amar Umar Gam Hu Yoda. Amar Rabba. So once again, by the way, you see this fixation, by the way, with Chesanes, right? I don't know if there's any other Gemara that tries to bring so many riots for a concept. Right? This is now already 3 blot. Feels like 7 blot, but it's actually only 1.5 blot. Right? So 1.5 blot, right? That again, Minayim. So first of all, because again, the notion of Chesanes is such an incredibly important episode that the Gemara wants to find as many proofs for it as we can. Yechi Ruben v'al Yamos. Ruben will live and he will not die. Parashas Vayechi. Yechi Ruben ba'olam hazeh. No, not Parashas Vayechi. Sorry. So it's not brachos. Those brachos. It's not the brachos of Yaakov. It's the brachos of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yechi Ruben v'al Yamos. Yechi Ruben ba'olam hazeh. Ruben will live in this world. V'al Yamos v'olam haba. And he will not die in the world to come. Ravina Amar Mehalcha Ravina says here. The Rabbi Mishay Ad Mas'afar Yakitzu. Eilu l'chai olam ve'eilu l'chai chosam l'diron. So say, incredibly enough, a number of these psukim from Daniel are actually quite explicit, right? So many of those who sleep in the earth will wake back up, some for the world to come and some for degradation. And now ultimately again, you go to your place and rest, but stand right, literally again, return the Garalach, return for your destiny at the end of days. Well, it's actually interesting because a number of these psukim, we actually say the Kavura. This is actually the pasuk that we say after the Kavura is completed. Before the Avelim leave the kever and walk back through the shul, walk back through the line, we actually, it's not a halacha, but it's a minhag. Many of the minhag to actually recite this pasuk, addressing it to the neshama. Other ones are called Parnes. Shemani gets at Sibar Benachos. Any leader who leads his flock, who leads his Sibar Benachos. Now, what does Benachos mean? Benachos means with a gentle kite. The gentle kite is not yelling, is not screaming, is not fire and brimstone, not demeaning them, not Benachos. So such a person like this is Zocha to lead that Sibar Olam Haba as well. I will say these Gemaras really seem to indicate that Olam Haba here is a reference to Messianic era, right? Post Trias HaMesim era. Shnei Amar Kimrachim Minhagim Va'amabuim Ma'iminar. Remember Lazar? Gedolah Dea. This is incredible. Gedolah Dea. Shenitna Ben Shtei Osios. Dea. Wisdom. Now we're going to define what wisdom is in a little bit. Wisdom is great. Why? Because it was given between. It literally means between 2 letters. What it actually means is between 2 names of Hashem. Shnei Amar Kel Deos Hashem. So once they see that, Deos is mentioned in the middle of Kel and Hashem. So the Gemara says that's incredible if something is given over between two names of the Ribono Shel Olam. Rabbi Lazar says Gadol Mikdash. The Beis Hamikdash is great. Shnita and Ben Shnei Osios because it was given over between two names of Hashem. Shnei Amar Pa'alta Hashem Mikdash Hashem. So it's again Mikdash is sandwiched between two names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Masei Ravada, Masei Ravada. Karfino Elame After Gidol Lekama Shnita Ben Shnei Osios. Oh. You're going to use that model, then you come of vengeance. Vengeance is also great because vengeance is given between two names of Hashem. The Sid, Kel Nikamos Hashem. Right? The Pasuk says, right? Kel Nikamos Hashem, Kel Nikamos Sophia. Amalei, the Milse Hakinami, right? By the way, vengeance has its place. Absolutely. As much as we always think about vengeance as a negative thing, vengeance is not a negative thing. Sometimes vengeance is very powerful. And it's halal. So why do I need two revelations? So far, right means like a revelation. So why two revelations? That doesn't say revelation twice. That just says Sophia once. But it says in the comma moments. So what does that mean? So the Gemara says, Achas l'mida tova, v'achas l'mida koronis. So one ultimately, I get about to could be like a vengeance for good and a vengeance for bad. So a vengeance for good could be like when a person repays for. Sometimes vengeance is good. Sometimes vengeance is in our favor, especially when it's taken out on those who have oppressed us. And sometimes vengeance, chas v'shalom, could be punitive in nature. So I'm Rabbi Lazar, call Adam Sheish Bo De'ah, both is beautiful Gemara. Call any person who has De'ah, who has understanding, ki Nivna Beis Hamikdash b'yama. It's as if the Beis Hamikdash was built in his days. Shezeh is the Gemara's why. Shezeh nitei ben shtei osios, v'zeh nitei ben shtei osios. Because ultimately, again, as we just said before, De'ah is between two names of Hashem and Mikdash is between Hashem. Now, what that means, what does that mean? Any person who has De'ah, has wisdom, this Mikdash was rebuilt. We're going to come back to that tomorrow. So you can underline it and come back to it after we get a working definition of really what De'ah means. Okay, yeah, now I'll give it a few more minutes. I'll Rabbi Lazar, actually right now. I'll Rabbi Lazar, call Adam Sheish Bo De'ah l'sof misasher. Any person who has De'ah will become wealthy. Shnei Amar, u'b'das charidim yimalu kol hol yekar v'nam. I'm Rabbi Lazar, call Adam she'ein Bo De'ah, asur lachim alav. Any person who doesn't have De'ah, ultimately, again, you can't have Rachmanas on him. Shnei Amar, ki lo am binasu, akim bo yirachamenu oseo v'yotzer l'rechanenu. Rabbi Lazar, kol hanosim tito l'mishein bo De'ah, yisrun ban alav. Whoever gives bread to someone who doesn't have De'ah, ultimately, again, bad things will happen. So we'll say, it's very interesting. So you see this Gemara, you can't have compassion upon someone who doesn't have De'ah. You can't go ahead and give your bread to someone who doesn't have De'ah. Then we'll say, what's the pshat with this? What's the pshat with this? We'll say, okay, so let me say this now. What's De'ah? What this? We translate it as wisdom. Then we'll say, but what if you think about this just from a basic perspective, what is the core component of wisdom? Right? What is like the most basic part aspect of wisdom? What's wisdom? So it's interesting. Remember again, Chazal, right, Moshe's brachas. It speaks about Havdalah and Shmona Esrei. Chazal said, where did Chazal put Havdalah? Where does Havdalah go? Atachonin la'adam das. The most basic concept of das is the ability to be makri, the ability to distinguish between kodesh and chol. Das in its most basic. Before you get into all the deeper layers of what wisdom actually means, what wisdom means on its most core level is I can distinguish between right and wrong. I can distinguish between kodesh and chol. I can distinguish between tamei and tar. And everyone say that is something that every single person has the ability to do. You know, to be a chacham, right? Remember again, there's chachma, there's bina, there's that. Okay, so chachma, bina, those might be higher levels, and maybe not every person has the ability to access it. But to have das, to be the kind of person who knows what's right and what's wrong, and to make the right decisions in life, every single person has the ability to meet that threshold. And failure to do so is only one person's fault, and that's mine. And that's why Chazal say, if somebody doesn't have De'ah, don't have Rachmanas on them. Don't have Rachmanas on them. Why? Because they're hurting themselves. They're not a victim of anything. they're hurting themselves. Someone doesn't have Deah, don't give them bread. Right? Why? Why? Because you are enabling an errant lifestyle. I will say a person has to have a basic moral compass through which they know what's right and what's wrong. And if they don't have that, if you help them, you're enabling them to continue on that broken path. And that's as the Gemara says over here. As I always says, any person who has Deah, he will live in the base of Mikdash B'yama. Right? Ultimately, again, because once at the end of the day, there's only really one thing I need in this world to be successful. Deah. I have to know what's kosher, what's trait, what's tameh, what's tahar, what's kodesh, what's kol, what's mutter, what's aser, what's tov, what's ra. And as long as I have that, I'm good. I'm good. The rest, I'll acquire or I won't. And as long as I have Deah, I will be successful. But conversely, if I don't have Deah, number one, if I don't have Deah, it's my fault. Don't blame it on anyone else. If I don't have Deah, it's my fault. And failure to acquire it is the highest level of personalistic culpability. To the point, you can't even help out a person like that. Such an overwhelming and incredible Gemara. And that's why the Gemara says, all right, this is like the right. I'm Rabbi Lazar. Let's say people shame about Deah, you still might love. That's why, again, if you give your bread to someone who doesn't have Deah, you, the giver, will suffer. Why? Because you are enabling someone. You are enabling someone to continue down the wrong path in life. Shne'emar, person who doesn't have Deah will ultimately be exiled. Makes a lot of sense. Why? Because it will say, if I don't have Deah, chances are I won't be able to build a solid life. I won't be able to build relationships. Like if you don't know what's right and what's wrong, you can't build relationships. It's as simple as that. I will say, like there are people who who refuse, not that they can't, they refuse to see right from wrong. And they'll make every single excuse why what they're doing is okay, even though it's clearly not. Can't build relationships, can't build a home, can't build a life. That's the name of self-gola. Self-gola, there'll be a one of Shne'emar, Lachin Gola Amin Vidas, Amalazar, Kabay Nishma Babalayla, Eshach Lasa. We'll say another incredible Gemara. That's Deah. We'll say this is a ridiculous Gemara. Any home in which words of Torah are not heard in at night, so in other words, any home in which there's not Torah learning at night, Eish Ochlasa, a fire will consume it. Shne'emar, Kol Choshech Tamar Tzfuna, Tochleu Eish Monofeach Yara, Surid Ba'ohalo. Ve'in Surid Al Tam Chacham, Shezam Chacham, Shne'emar, Ubesridim Asher Hashem Korei. But fine, let's say, so what does that mean? Any home in which Torah is not learned in at night, fire will consume it. It's a pretty strong thing. First of all, it tells us very important the need, in addition to coming to shul for night seder and the beautiful newspaper, which again, everybody has an obligation on night seder, even if it's for 15 minutes. Everybody has an obligation for night seder. It's not a shayla. It's not like I'm dabbling this. It's a chiyuv that right? So you have to have night seder. I will say, but I'm not joking around. Like a youth has to come to this medrash to learn a little bit at night, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. I start reminding the Torah medrash. But in addition to that, person also has to learn at home. Person has to have Torah in their house, right? And it's so important for so many different reasons. A wife should see her husband learning Torah. Children should see their father learning Torah. The walls of my home should see me learning Torah. So what's the pshat when the Gemara says over here that any home in which Torah is not heard at night, fire consumes it? Perhaps it means like this. Night is always a metaphor for difficulties. Right? That's like Laila is always a metaphor for difficult times. Especially when is like this. Old bias. Shein divrei Torah nishma and bo balayis. Right? So any home in which Torah is not heard at night. In other words, any home where things become difficult, the Torah stops. Like in other words, as soon as it becomes Laila, as soon as life becomes difficult, the first thing that kind of goes away is Torah. Just understand, Eish Ochlasa. Fire, not literal fire. Fire is also destructive. Destructive forces will consume it. If during difficult periods in life, the first thing that gets stopped is spirituality, just understand the fire of the negative circumstances will consume that home. The staying power of a home, the staying power of anything in your life is rooted in its connection to Ruchnius. So if even during the Laila periods of life, there is Torah in my home, there is Torah in my life, then I will be safe from the ravaging effects of even the most difficult of life circumstances. Conversely, if in the moment that difficulty set in, the first thing that goes is Torah, the first thing that stops is Torah, then Eshach Lasso. Then the fire of every single difficult circumstance will ultimately consume me, consume my home, and consume all the circumstances. So we'll have to stop over here. Incredible Gemara. We'll have to stop over here. Shkoyach. By the way, so we did more than a block today. Fantastic. Right, wrong block, but that's a detail. So let's say we'll continue. I think tomorrow's going to be our catch-up day because Emir Hashem much shorter Gemara. Emir Hashem, Shkoyach everyone. Whatever. Such a Shkoyach everyone. Nice. It's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Oh, was it on in here also? All right.
So I called Mike.
All right, Turbo Saints, good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning's share. To thank our annual Talmud Torah sponsor. Telson Mishpacha Eretz Yisrael for dedicating all the Shuman Drushos this year as a zchus for Besaros Tavos for Am Yisrael. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Adar, Terry and Steve Zinn, in loving memory of Terry's father, Dr. Harry Khan, Zichron Livracha, Tzvi Hirsch Ben Yosef HaKohen, and the Ziv, Levin, and Berman families in memory of William Ziv Shmuel Ben Yisrael, Zichron Livracha. We hope that on the merit of our Talmud Torah, all of the Neshama Saban Aliyah, the families in the Chamash Baruch will bring all of our hostages home, and our holy soldiers will be successful. The whole Maaseh Yedayim. So with that, let us begin. We have a lot to do today. Today's daf is Tzadik Beis 92. We are picking up on Tzadik Aleph, Amud Aleph, 3 lines up from the bottom. Amarle Antonius L'Revi. Again, but incredible, still more incredible, beautiful Gemara ahead of us. They should have made the daf learning cycle like 8 years. So let's give it like an extra 6 months to kind of work through Gemaras like this. But all right, okay. Good. So let's say 3 lines are from the bottom. Tzadik Aleph from Dalet 91a. Amarle Antoninus L'Revi. And let's say so we're going to have a number of different conversations like this between Rabbi and Antoninus. Remember again, Antoninus was a Roman official. There's a little bit of historical debate exactly who Antoninus was. Was he a Caesar? Was he someone else? So we'll just go with the idea that he was one of the Caesars. So fascinatingly enough.
Yo, can you hear me? The Radical Lover. I love Michael Scott. I love the office. How you living? Can you hear me? The Radical Lover. Can you hear me? Do you speak English? How'd you find out about me? Oh shit.
So, like, as far as deciding this one, really not going to take a side on this because Roddy knows, like, division game, they normally, these two teams beat up on each other. It's either they split for the season, and we win one game, and then the next game, Rolling Saints, they play us again in the season, and they end up winning that one. So it's kind of a split. It just depends on who's going to get the first game. Likely they're not going to get the second one. So, looking at their home and away splits, it's kind of split down the middle. So I don't see an advantage. As far as betting aside in this one for me, I'm on the Bucks away for sure, right? I'm a Bucks fan, but as far as a betting standpoint, picking a side in this one, it typically is kind of a split down the middle. I would like to think that my Bucks will bounce back today after taking that terrible Oh my bad, I see it in 15 minutes in February. Yeah, that's right. Last year, 68 right now, right after the season. And then 29. Look at the number two that they give up on Martin and something like that. That's what the last right now. Yeah, they're 93. 6 words. Hey, I know it's a tight end, Jones. I didn't really get a chance to go sleep. Just phone and shit. But I will say, I just sent the Lamar Jackson shit. The Ravens, if you haven't looked at tight end, you gotta take up like whatever his reception is. First one, that nigga Tyler sucks. That reception things for sure. He's gonna go to his tight end. So I think Mark Andrews right like under like 30 yards. So I think that was a good tight end pick up on. But if his receptions is like 2.5 or 3.5, that'd be good. Likely is playing right now. Yeah, but likely I don't. I mean, I think they got the chemistry. Yeah, but with I got and I can get it, but it's just my thing. How often we now into that range of match? How many chances? Six receptions, 15 thoughts, shots. And 2 touchdowns, I think. That's the name right there. Jeremy Shannon was you said 100 receptions, right? He can get that 6 yards. And the fact that he had it walking 0 last week. That's cool. AKA Gus Bus, your hand is up. Alright, you left him back, man. Another play, I think that Bengals spread is easy money. I ain't gonna lie to Jets. Everybody's on the other side. Are y'all the Jets? Yeah. I don't know. That Bengals defense is so nasty. That Jets team is a little nasty. They have 7 negatives. Juice. Hey, you know I fuck was good. Ryan Brown, he's still alive. Nah, I got Tyler Huntley, that nigga. Tyler Huntley ain't money. I ain't think a 6-shot might keep me out. I don't want to return. Hey, Mike. 1 and 6, that's some shit. Yeah, man. But I say no, man. Yo, nah, this was a floor, man. Nah, this was a floor, man. Fuck you talking about. Hey, I need my bill money back, man. Hey, so wasn't you that said you like something? Yes, by default. Yes, I do. Sure. Think you can act on the first part? I'll let them know at some point today. I wouldn't bet on first quarter just to break it for betting. I'm also not recommending it to anybody because it can easily he's got to do something. That man versus the bench, bro. Yeah, but then you see, I wouldn't do that, but then the defense has like 2 yards. Yeah, I'm not going to blame him. But he doesn't have to do shit. And people just be mad that the guy straight went the way he did. That's the problem with Betty Saquon. Is that it's like it's just right now it's a crapshoot because defenses are literally stacking the box to just get him to just limit him and say, hey, Jalen, you got to go where to get him. And he did last week, right? So I'm surprised nobody said nothing about you and your offense 14 and a half receiving yards. See, this is my thing, though. I don't know the chemistry with that nigga throwing, bro. Like that shit, the numbers low. It mean like same receiving yards, bro. This shit is slow fools. You feel me? Like it's remember he took the final act of God for him to get the last reception on that light. I mean, cashing, but he wasn't getting plus 148. Like, not at all. Plus 10, plus 105. Yeah. It ain't a bad play to take. Like, I think, shit, you gonna take the first half, so you can take the 20. Listen, he still needs 7 to get 1,000 receptions, which is a big deal. Oh, he's on 7. Yeah, like his 7 receptions. But he ain't got to get this one. Yeah, he does. I mean, but it is tight end. It is just like it is. Like, if you got 8, you got 10. I mean, it is tight end. You know what I'm saying? Tight end. So, and he did quit. He just hit a little hours in the sun. I can see Killer Bugs. Alright. On fantasy team meetings. I'm going to play the 6 in the next game, the 4 o'clock window. Two other games in the 4 o'clock window. The Titans travel Indianapolis, over 47.5 for the game. Listen, I think Indianapolis wins the game. I think 14.5 points is a lot of points. I think they have shown us though that they're quite they're a team. They're really quite good. They're talented across the board. The offense is good. The automatic play in this game is only Chris Walker's reception, no matter who's on the field. His numbers at 19.5. If you're taking it for a 20-yard reception, you got to do it. There's not a metric in the world that can tell you not to. I'm not mad at Jonathan Taylor's reception either, even though, you know, it's kind of tough to just at that front just because, you know, because of Big Jeff. But I do think that he's able to get his numbers for 17.5. And I do like the Indianapolis Colts team total. I think the Colts offense is just extremely multiple. As long as their quarterback's not giving the ball to the other team, they're going to be everything next to next. Yeah, but him in particular, because prior to him coming here, I think they said this year. That's not relevant to what I said. That has zero correlation. That has zero relevance to what I just said. No, not to anything. I mean, it's zero relevance to what I was just saying. I like JT. I got it. It was 17. I was just fucking 19. So, but either way, like you said, I like it. I'm not commission. What is today again? That's just I'm not making it work because I gave out him. So, did I first quarter receiving yards with that one more as a plus play? I mean, I know Tennessee's been doing really well in the last few games against tight ends. They don't put Henry in check, Austin Cooper in check, and then Drake and Brad, they'll get up there and yards in that. That was the first time they faced him. So you put up 32 in the first quarter, and it was earlier in the season. I think you got to take that 13.5 is just too low. And I think the reception in the first quarter is the line is up to 170. And I think we're going to go down early. And I love the outlook. There's no reception. You got to play that game in the places. Correct. Yeah, it's just a consistency thing. He's shown it. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is either. I think that's the best part about the outdoor spin is because he was doing it no matter who the quarterback was, which is the best way to target. Sean, he goes to Western. Yeah, what's up? What's the deal, man? What do you like for that? Well, in this game, I love Jonathan Taylor. Jeffrey Simmons is out, so that's their big run stopper. And we're not going to have anyone stopping on Taylor's now. He's not playing. Yeah, they rolled him out yesterday. Okay, then yeah. JT's numbers reception is 1 million% of it. What is misperception too. But to me, I think, I'm not mad at anything that Taylor related. The power ranking, this just means everybody should be easier for everybody. To be honest, Jeff Simmons is the only person on that defense that you really have to game plan. He is. If I'm lying, tell me. That's a fact. You're literally the only person on the entire offense, the entire defense, that you would have to account for. He's it. Should be moved into that line, but that's just me. He's got a big contract. That's the problem. And I don't think they want to move. I think that he's still a piece of the future. They drafted him really young. Remember his first year, like we didn't think he was going to be that good. Because if you remember, he was coming off ACL in college. Remember that shit when he was coming off ACL? Yep. Mississippi State. Probably different than State that he was like. Is that where he went? Mississippi State. I couldn't know.
He developed a relationship with Rabbi with Rabbi, and so the Gemara records multiple conversations between the two men who had tremendous respect for one another. And Antoninus actually helped out Rabbi on a number of different occasions. So Antoninus says to the following: "Go for the Shabbat. This is incredible. The body and the soul have the ability to kind of exempt each other from judgment. Meaning, essentially, another way of saying, body and soul have the ability to blame each other for failure. How so? Kesad. Guf Omer. Neshama Chatasa. The body can say it's clearly the neshama's fault that I've sinned. How so? So very listen to this cheshbon. Shem Shapir Shemeni Hari Mushal Kevin Domin Bekever. Because the body can say, look, I'll show you the raya. From the time that the neshama left me, I have not gotten myself into any trouble. Right? The moment that the neshama left, what am I doing? I'm just laying here in the grave. So clearly, again, who is the instigator of all of my life's problems? It clearly was the neshama. When the neshama can say, "Guf chata." No, it's the body that sinned. What's the proof? Because the neshama can say, "Look at me. From the day that I left that fashtunk in the body, what happened? I'm flying in the heavens like a bird. Like a bird, right? So body says it's clearly the neshama's fault. The neshama says it's clearly the body's fault. So listen to this. So Antoninus was asking, what's the question over here? Antoninus was questioning. So what is the mechanism of divine judgment? So how does the Kodesh Baruch Hu hold the person accountable? But essentially, a person is composed of these two opposing forces, and it's not clear who has responsibility. Ultimately for the failure of man. So this is beautiful. So let me give you a mashal. I'll give you a little mashal. I'll give you a little mashal. Listen to this. This is great. The Melech Pasar Dam Shayla Pardes. A king had a beautiful orchard. V'hayava on the base. Look at our planet, right? V'hayava b'choros nose, and in the orchard or in the field, the king had very nice dates. B'choros nose, very nice dates, right? Or very nice figs. Now the king, one of them was crippled and one of them was blind. So I guess he got a discount. Again, so these were the watchmen over the field. So the crippled one said to the sumo, to the blind one, I see that there's some really nice figs in this field. So the crippled watchman says to the blind watchman, let's do this. Put me on your back. We'll use your legs and my eyes, and together we'll be able to partake of the figs. So sure enough, sure enough again, the crippled one got on the back of the blind.
How you living, big dog?
How are you living, man?
I'm kicking ass, taking names. Every day's a holiday, every meal's a feast. First and foremost, I love your avatar.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Michael Scott, man.
100%. Michael Gary Scott.
Gary, yeah, I don't know. Honestly.
No, it's
I
true.
don't know, man.
Erratic lover, how'd you find out about me?
You clipped one of my streams, dude.
Oh, on Kick?
Yeah,
That's amazing. All right, my friend. So you are a streamer yourself, I take it?
yeah. I mean, I'm just messing around, man.
Word, dog, aren't we all? Do you mind if I tell you about myself?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Rabbi Rothschild. I stream my life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for world peace. I've been doing so for more than 3.5 years. My streams go back to the pandemic. We've seen the death of a queen, the birth of AI, the coronation of a king, and everything in between. If I may ask, Erratic Lover, have you ever seen the movie The Truman Show or the television show Big Brother?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's essentially what my life is. I'm live right now on more than 20 different YouTube streams from 360 degrees. If you weren't aware, the Economist magazine stated in 2018 that data was Earth's number one resource, and I have more data archived on the internet than any person ever. Which may make me an influential person someday, and if and when that happens, Erratic Lover, I want to make you, your friend, your family, all independently wealthy. If you're not already, I want to make sure that you have generational wealth if you don't already, and I want to make sure that you are able to start charities and philanthropic organizations of your own. How does that sound?
Yeah, man, I'm down for, money and everything, but
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm just curious about you. I just see you chilling on your bed, dude, and I was like, let me see what this guy's about,
100%. I talk about things that I think will help the world. Things like ending world hunger through the use of technology such as agricultural drones, floating greenhouses, saltwater greenhouses, hydroponics, vertical farming, cloud seeding. I want to help end world thirst. I'm sponsored by a cryptocurrency that's worth about $100 million, and one of the things that we do is we build wells in developing nations like Nigeria for the benefit of the less fortunate. Additionally, I'm an advocate for the LifeStrap program, but most importantly, I'm an advocate for desalination technology, where we pump Earth's seawater onto land and make it drinkable. How do those things sound to you, Erratic Lover?
Pretty cool, man. Yeah, I like that.
Excellent. I talk about other
All
things,
good things.
specifically futuristic topics, topics on futurism. I'm a futurist myself. Things like anti-gravity, antimatter, faster than light travel, faster than light communication, artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence. I talk about things like the invisibility cloaks. I talk about things like space tourism, space elevators, terraforming other planets. I talk about things like interstellar travel. I talk about things like de-extinction. People don't know this, but the first successful de-extinction took place in the year 2003 with the Pyrenean ibex, which was a goat located in northern Spain, southern France. Fast forward to the year 2021, a company out of Dallas, Texas, is founded known as Klaus Scientific. They've made it their goal that within the next 3 years to reintroduce the woolly mammoth into the Arctic Circle utilizing Asian elephant surrogates. And I just think this is a mind-blowing goal. Additionally, they want to reintroduce the Tasmanian tiger after the woolly mammoth, followed by the dodo bird, which I think will be really exciting to be able to witness. Additionally, I talk about the
Cool, but, like, at the same time, when do you think men have begun playing God?
well, I think we've been doing that for a long time. Perhaps the first person to
And do you agree with it?
it's not up to me to agree whether it's good or not. It's just the world in which we live.
I mean, you're allowed to formulate an opinion upon it, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, as a futurist, I think that the more that we're able to manipulate our own environments, the better opportunity we have to live longer and perhaps be able to evolve into a new kind of species. So I'm about that. I like that. Um, for those people who don't want that, they don't have to have that kind of future. They can decide if they want to just live a finite amount of years and then die like a normal Homo sapien has for the last few 100,000 years. But for those of us who want to perhaps escape a type of normal death into transhumanism, I think we should be allowed that option as well.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you look, right?
So long as it doesn't hurt anybody else.
I mean, it will eventually, I think.
Okay, how's it going to hurt them?
Because eventually life, humanity, and society will be tailored towards those who are going to stick around the longest, right? You know?
I'm in agreement with you on that one, big dog.
Yeah, so I mean, it'll tailor towards the people who, generate more income for the people manufacturing these methods of extending, their lifespan. And so eventually, just living a normal short span life, you're going to be bottom of the barrel when it comes to most public services or, anything really.
That's certainly a potential. You're 100% right on that.
I just saw Rabbi in your name, so I wanted to talk to you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you sound like a very intelligent man, at least knowledgeable.
I do my best to be.
Sound like you have a lot of interest.
100%. I want world peace.
Okay. Understandable.
Yeah.
Do you agree with everything going on over there right now?
I don't agree with everything going on anywhere in the world, to be honest with you. I want global peace. I don't want anyone to die on any side of any war, whether it's in the Middle East or Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So I'm at the heart of my life. I'm a pacifist, and I don't feel that I have any right to put my hands on you, nor do you have any right to put your hands on me without our consent. And if we can live like that, then we should be able to have a happy life. That's kind of the credo that by which I do my best to live. And
yeah,
so that's kind of my feeling on things.
I understand that. So you're Jewish.
100%. 100%.
100%. So I've seen things where it's like people are justifying the state of Israel, right? Because I get Israel has multiple meanings, right? And at least this is what I've heard, trying to piece it together. And they said there's biblical justification for modern conflict. Do you agree with that?
Oh, I think that those are that's outdated thinking. That may need some revision for a modern age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know what specifically you're referencing, and we're not looking at a passage at this time. But in general, I think that the borders of Israel have never been defined, nor, not biblically, nor in the modern age. But if you really want to know, I look forward to a day, one day, perhaps, when Israel's the whole world. But that doesn't mean that other people can't enjoy it. So, just like part of me has a desire for the United States to be the whole world. Any person in any country in which they live, in their own way, wants everyone to experience the same type of benefits and enjoyment that they're able to. And the idea of a homogenous society eventually someday.
So you're very pro-homogenous. So, which is I think that would obviously work, right? I agree with that.
Yeah. So basically, I think we should give people the opportunity to be Jewish if they want to be Jewish, and It hasn't been something that's really been publicized. We don't proselytize as Jews, but I look forward to a day when Mashiach, our coming Savior, Messiah, essentially, may usher in a world where people want to be Jewish. If they don't want to be Jewish, well, they don't have to be. No one is forcing anybody into anything. But I think they don't necessarily know what it is to be Jewish as well. So don't knock it till you try it, as they say.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. See, I'm Christian, I'm Catholic. And so you speak of Messiah coming, and to me, the Messiah's already came.
Right? That's the big
I,
disagreement for 2,000 years.
What do you say?
That's our big disagreement for the last 2,000 years.
Yeah, the whole world, right? It's like all Abrahamic religions just disagree on that.
Yeah, I could get on
Whatever,
board with.
not really a big deal.
I could get on board with some of that, but I just have an issue with like the idea that God had to die. That doesn't make sense to me.
Like talking about like God through Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, if you think that like Jesus is the three in one, the Trinity, and is both the Son and the Father and the Holy Spirit simultaneously, which is, I believe, traditional Catholic dog. I don't know, so please correct me.
Yeah.
Then I guess Jesus, the Nazarene, was crucified, died, and was buried. And then, as I understand it, on the third day after burial, rose from the dead. But that means he died, which means what? There wasn't a God in the universe for 3 days because some Romans crucified him. It doesn't make sense to me. It's a nice story.
No, I get that. I said Christian Catholic, I'm like kind of a middle ground floating right now. To be honest, I do believe Jesus is Messiah. I think he's merely Son of Man, God. That's it.
Okay.
I don't believe he is God in himself.
Okay.
God of the flesh, no.
Okay, well, I mean, that's really a more Christian, as I understand, and that's Catholic, even though it's more Protestant view, I would say. But, I mean, that's for
I
you.
worship Mary as well, so it's like it's weird. I don't know. Modern religion is honestly too far off the rails right now for me to get devoted.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one. How someone could be impregnated by God, how that works. I don't know. These are not questions for me to understand, but
there's a lot I don't understand about a lot of religion.
Sure, I understand, but with that, I'm sure there's a lot on which we do have agreements. One of which is your love of The Office.
I do love The Office.
What's your favorite character? Who's your favorite character? What's your favorite season? Talk to me about it.
I'm not that crazy into it, man.
Okay, do you have a favorite
I'm not.
season?
Yeah, Michael Scott.
Okay, that's
Michael Scott favorite character.
Excellent. That's a great choice. Okay, do you have a favorite season, or like I can tell you this? I love the seasons 1 through 7. I can't stand season 8. I think it's terrible with Robert California.
Yeah, a lot of people say that.
Oh, it's awful. And then season 9 is okay, but I don't really enjoy it that much. But seasons 1 through 7 are amazing. Seasons 2 and 3 are some of the best television that NBC's ever had. Even 4 and 5 are really good. It gets, as they say, they jump the shark a little bit in the later seasons, which I don't really like. But when they're in that show, when they're sticking to things that are Office related, I think it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, man.
All right. Who's the hottest chick in the show?
Mm, I don't know, dude. I'm gonna be cliche and say Penny.
Penny's not a character. You mean Pam?
Bam, 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 bam. Yeah.
You're good. Penny's Big Bang Theory. Okay. If that's what you're thinking. Okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm a big fan of Jan Levinson. I think she's hot as fuck. That's Miranda Harper, whatever her name is, the boss. She's a beautiful woman. Um, I think Erin's really pretty. She's like she takes over as the administrative assistant after Pam. Um, yeah, okay. Do you have a favorite episode?
No, dude. I'm barely. I just turn it on, man. But forget what I'm doing. You know.
I get you. A lot of people do that. In fact, there's some people who just watch it constantly as background noise, and I totally get that. I've known quite a few people who do that. Okay. Any character you don't like?
No, but dude, I hate to interrupt you, but I gotta go.
Take care, my man.
But
Come back anytime, my
good
friend.
conversation. Yeah, I'm gonna hang out in here. I got some more questions for you, but I gotta get going.
All right, my friend. Well, whenever you have time, I'll do my best to answer them.
Yeah, peace and blessings, brother.
Take care, my friend. Shalom.
Shalom.
One. And they went together and they consumed the figs. Yomim Baal Pardes. So sometime later, the owner of the field comes along and he says, Arlahem, Bechoros knows, hey, where are my figs? So apparently they did a pretty good job consuming the figs and they ate a lot of figs in a relatively small amount of time or whatever, prolonged amount of time. So the owner comes back and says, by the way, where are my figs? So Amarlo Sumo, Klum Yeshli Naim Liros Ma'asa, I'm sorry, Amarlo Higar, Klum Yeshli Ragnaim Nahalech Baim, Amarlo Sumo, Klum Yesh Naim Liros. So again, what happened? So the watchman denied liability. How deny liability? So the blind guy said, what do you want from me? I don't have sight. It couldn't have been me. The crippled guy says, what do you want from me? I don't have legs. Clearly couldn't be me. So what does the Balasada do? So the owner of the field literally again put the crippled one on the back of the blind one and judged them as one entity. So you're right, as individuals, there's no liability. But as a joint unit, you actually have culpability. Making the Shama, the Zarka Baguf, the done Osam Ka'afat. So Rabbi essentially says, you're right. The body by itself and the soul by itself could both potentially deny liability. So what does Hashem do? He brings the neshama and literally he throws it into the guf. The done osam ka'afat. And ultimately, again, he goes ahead and he judges them as one entity. Shneimar Yikra al Shamayim Me'al ve'al ha'aretz ladin amo. Yikra al Shamayim Me'al, who called to the heavens above, Zun Neshama. And he calls to the earth for judgment together with it. So most really fascinating. So I'll tell you something amazing. The Bible says, but still, it's not fair. Why should the neshama be held liable for the sins of the body? At the end of the day, let's be honest, it's not the neshama that sins, it's the guf that sins. So why would the neshama be held accountable for the sins of the body? Listen to what the Rabbi says. This is classic of Levi Yitzchak. The Rabbi says, because the neshama didn't try hard enough to stop it. He says, because sometimes what happens is when the body gets all revved up to commit the sin, the neshama's like, I'm out. That's not a direct quote from the neshama, but you understand, right? In other words, like I'm out. I'm not doing this. I just like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be involved in this. And the neshama absents itself. The lady says, neshama, how dare you? How dare you? A chutzpah. You absent yourself and the body is struggling. Dafka, when the guf is struggling, that's when you need to be there even more. Dafka, when the fires of desire are burning, that's when you have to be there even more. A chutzpah, that you decide to walk away because now it's a little bit too difficult. That, says the Rebbe, is why the neshama is held accountable in the sins of the body as well. You should have tried harder to stop, and dafka, when the struggle is most acute, that's dafka when you don't walk away. Say, and it's such a profound yisod, Human nature is, I'm willing to be present, whatever present in a relationship with other people, relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. I'm ready to work on myself, whatever it might be. Until when? As long as it's okay, as long as it's manageable. But how often in life do we walk away from things because they get too difficult? Now again, obviously, are there times in life when you have to walk away from difficult circumstances? Of course. But more often than not, says the Rebbe, stop go when it gets hardest is that the time you have to be most present and you have to try hardest. The neshama is held culpable because when the body was struggling most, that's when the neshama really needed to be there. But instead, the neshama sent herself. Incredible. All right, let's go back there. I'm going to do Rabbi. I'm doing this Rabbi. It's great. Most of these Gemaras, like, yeah, it's impossible. Seriously, for me, this is like Lifnei Iber. It's like, we're switching to Amud Yomi until the end of Sanhedrin. And then Amir Hashem, we'll pick up with the rest of the Klal Yisrael. So, says, Antoninus Rabbi. Listen to this. Antoninus asks Rabbi. I will say, by the way, you see from the questions, these are not, I would say, sometimes when the Gemara records questions between Jews and non-Jews and Jews, the questions are often baiting questions meant to somehow, poke holes in our theology. If you notice that, that's not the nature of these questions. Antoninus has actually like a real theological curiosity, and just like a real world curiosity, which is why, by the way, Rabbi takes the time to answer so many of these questions, because he recognizes this is not Antoninus being difficult or trying to disprove us. This is Antoninus legitimately curious. So Antoninus asks Rabbi the following question. Listen to this. Why does the sun rise in the east and set in the west? I have to have a new appreciation for this Gemara, because last couple of days I was davening flag. So if you're ever here in Yisrael that flag mincha, the sun is blaring through those windows. Which is the most beautiful thing in the world. That's something we don't appreciate. We're busy the whole day, often indoors the whole day. So Mamish, if you sit over here, a little while, you'll see the sun coming up over here. Mamish, my flag, you'll see it setting over there. Anyway, so Antoninus asks, why is it that the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west? So this is interesting. So Rabbi says, what's your question? And if it was the reverse, so in other words, and if it was the reverse, we would ask you the reverse. Why does the sun rise in the west and set in the east? Well, in other words, Rabbi was asking, what's your question? No, here's my question. No, I'm just asking, why not just have the sun rise in the east and set in the east? Why does it have to rise in the east and set in the west? That's my question. Why does the sun need to traverse to the other direction? This is so beautiful. Shalom Lakona. In order that the sun should give Shalom Aleichem, should give Shalom to the Ribbon Shalom. Now, what does that mean? If you look at Rashi, Rashi is on both sides. By the way, I also feel a lot of Nechama not finishing the daf, because even Rashi couldn't get it together on one side of the page, right? Rashi took over both sides. So if Rashi needs both sides of the page, it makes sense that this takes us a little bit longer as well. So look at Rashi. Rashi on the right hand side, Shalom Lakona, La Kadosh Baruch Hu, Shashchina B'Marav. The Kiva Shemagaz Adam. So what does it mean the Shekhinah is in the west? So remember again, using the Beis HaMikdash model, so remember the Kodesh HaKadosh and the Holy of Holies was situated in the westernmost part of the Beis HaMikdash. So that's what it means when it says that the Shekhinah is in the west. So therefore the sun Kiviyah comes, he bows down before HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the west. And it sets, because when it sets it goes down representing bowing. So the Shekhinah itself, so the sun itself bows to HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the end of every day. So beautiful. Once again, Why not allow the sun to come like mid-sky? So rise in the east, come to mid-sky, bow there, right? So not bow there. In other words, bow there, and then just set. In other words, what I was asking is, why does the sun have to make its way all the way from east to west? I understand it needs to make its way from east towards west. Why does it have to go down all the way in the west? Let it just come to mid-sky, so to speak, bow down to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and set right there. Good question, which the Gemara says, Mishum Polim Ba'ovrei Drachim, because of workers and travelers. And I will say, what does that mean? If you look at Rashi, Mishum Polim, Dilukar Chaya Makshek Piton, Shekishachama Be'emtza Rakia Me'ira B'yoser, Usur Shadayin B'shahos B'yom, Ba'yipolin Shom Malachton, Ad Shekashech Ba'ovrei Drachim, Nani L'hayu Yodim, Masai Yachshach L'vakish. Here's the problem. If the sun was set mid-sky, so let's say, let's work backwards. The way the sun currently works is the sun goes down gradually. People know, right? Workers know that the work is coming to an end. Travelers know that they only have a certain amount of daylight left. If the sun were to set while it's mid-sky, this would curtail the workday. This would create a problem for the workday. This would create a problem for travelers. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in order to allow people to work, and in order to allow people to travel, allows the sun to continue across the sky and set more gradually in the west. So the sun setting in the west really serves a twofold purpose. Number one, it bows to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and number two, it allows the maximum amount of time for the travelers and the workers. So let's say, what a tremendous Musar has skill. What does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want to maximize time for? What is he maximizing time for? Working and traveling. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants more than anything from us is to work hard and to work for as long as possible and to maximize our hours of productivity. Vaharaya, otherwise he could have caused the sun just to set in the middle of the sky. The whole reason why the sun travels from east to west and sets gradually, the whole reason is to give us more hours in the day to work, to give us more hours in the day to travel. What does it mean to travel? I'm at location A, I want to get to location B. Life is all about the travel. Life is all about the journey. Life is all about moving myself forward. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu maximizes time because what he wants more than anything from us is to work. He wants us operating on all cylinders. He wants us maximizing the workday. I'll tell you about your career, right? It could be your material career and your spiritual career. He wants us to journey. He doesn't want us to stay in place. So he maximizes the way that the sun works. Incredible. Rabbi. Such profound questions. So Antoninus says, but interestingly enough, indicates to us that Antoninus believes in the neshama. He believes in the soul. So he asks, when does a person receive their neshama? Mishas Pekida or Mishas Isira? So I'll say, so Pekida means literally again at the beginning of the pregnancy. Now, Rashi points out, remember again the beautiful Gemara Seches Nida, that the Gemara says that when a woman becomes pregnant, so the malach takes the tipa. So the tipa sounds like literally again, I don't know, what do you call it? At the beginning of the pregnancy, what is it? A fetus? An embryo? A blast. Okay, good. Fantastic. So the malach takes the blast and he goes ahead and he brings it before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And he says, Tipazu Mate'aleh. What is this? That's called Pekida. Because Pekida means to remember, that's for the malach saying to Hashem, what is this baby going to be? So Antoninus asks Rabbi, when does the baby get its neshama? Is it at that moment, like when it's the blast? Or maybe no, when it takes on, Sira means literally again, there's more of like a form of a human being. Like the baby looks, or the fetus looks like a baby. So the Gemara says, so Rabbi says it's from the time that the baby is more well formed. Okay? So Antoninus says it doesn't make any sense. So again, he says it can't be. This is, for example, a piece of meat, right? You can't leave a piece of meat out for 3 days and it won't go bad. In other words, it needs salt. It needs a preservative in order to keep it. So Antoninus was saying was, everything that exists needs a preservative. So just like meat needs salt, so how does the blast, right? How does the fetus exist at any point in time without a neshama? It must be Elo Mishas Pekida. So Antoninus says to Rabbi, it must be that the neshama comes into the fetus already from the time that it's a blast, from the moment of inception. So Amar Rabbi said, Davar Zelam Dani Antoninus. Look at this. So what's this incredible? Rabbi said, Antoninus, you're right. Right, saying good. Right, and furthermore, there's a pasuk that backs up onto this. What's the pasuk? So the Gemara says, Shamra Luchi. So literally again, so they're dashing it from Pshas Pekida, from the moment of Pekida, from the moment that the Malach brings the tip of the drop before HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shamra Luchi. My Ruach preserves me. My Ruach keeps me. Which of us seems to indicate that the neshama is given to the fetus, to the entity in its initial blast form. Incredible. Okay, so now that we spoke about neshama, so when does a person get to the Yitzhara? So mishas yitzira or mishas yitzia? So interestingly enough, so here the question is it from the time maybe that the embryo, that the fetus is formed, the baby is formed, or is that there's sinews, there's flesh, or the time that the baby comes out of its mother, exits its mother? Says, I'm sorry. So Rabbi says, I responded from the time that the fetus is formed in utero. Ultimately, again, that's when there's Yitzhara. So Adonai says, doesn't make sense. If that's the case, the fetus would kick its way out of its mother. Which I will say, so we hear this, so if the baby had a Yitzhara, fetus had a Yitzhara, it would kick its way out of its mother. Which tells you something amazing. What does the Yitzhara do? What does the Yitzhara do? The Yitzhara causes us to kick. It causes us to kick. The entire essence of the Yitzhara is to break down boundaries. Right? In other words, so the Yitzhara says, okay, I know that this is us, so I don't care. I know that I'm not allowed to do this, I don't care. That's all chap the Yitzhara. But here's the interesting idea. The Yitzhara has a very profound use as well. Because if I somehow am able to take that energy of the Yitzhara and channel it in the right way, then suddenly now I have what? I have a cock inside of me that breaks down boundaries, which, by the way, can be the most incredible engine of growth. Right? Everything is about how you harness that power. So again, Antonina says it can't be the baby has the Yitzhara, because literally it would kick its way out of the womb. It must be that it receives the Yitzhara when it comes into this world. Rabbi says, so Rabbi once again agrees with Antonina. He says, you're right. He says, you're absolutely right. Right? It must be that the baby receives it when exiting. Umikra Messiah, and ultimately, again, there is a pasuk that supports this as well. Shene'amar lepasach chatos lobeis. Pasuk said that again, sin awaits you at the entrance. Now, of course, again, this is talking about Cain. This pasuk is by Cain, but it's a metaphor. The pasuk is at the opening, at the entry to the world. Sin crouches. The Yitzhara is there, and I will say this seems to be the adopted approach as well. Very interesting that the Yitzhara comes about ultimately again when we enter into this world. I will say that this is so that first of all, it's interesting to see, and we know this from our own lives. Now, what does the Yitzhara do? The Yitzhara gets me to kick down boundaries. But again, if I can harness that, if I can channel that, then what a profound engine for personalistic growth. Our Sigmar says, Rish Lakish contrasted to Psukim. I went in the says on the site, so Bam, Iver, Upiseach, Harav Yovadas Yachta, Uksiv, Az Yedali Ka'ayo, Piseach, Vistron Lashon, Elaine, Shinifku, Midbar Mayim, Benachalin, Ba'arava. So as I said, interestingly enough, two different Psukim that refer to the Messianic era. So the Gemara writes to Tchias Amesim. One pasuk seems to indicate that people come back with all of their physical blemishes. The other pasuk seems to indicate that people come back healed, which I will say is one of the questions that we have. We saw it right in yesterday's daf. Right? How do people come back to Tchias Amesim? Clothed, unclothed? Do they come back with their injuries, with their blemishes, with their disabilities? Like, how do people come back? To which the Gemara says, you're right. In reality, we come back again with our mumin, but then we are healed by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Incredible. I will say now, why not just come back healed? Because again, there's a greater appreciation when you come back with all of your injuries, right? I come back with all of my broken kite. I come back with all of it. And then in Tchias Amesim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes there and heals me. That's tremendous. Let's go back to Ula Ramiksiv. Ula brings down to Psukim. Let's say second wide line. And Tzadik Aleph on the base. So literally again, death will be swallowed up forever, and Hashem will erase every tear from every face. So I'll say, here's another question. In Messianic era, is there death or is there not death? One pasuk seems to indicate there's no more death. Other pasuk seems to indicate that no, there will be death, but when a person dies at 100, it'll be like the death of a young person, which sounds like we'll live much longer, but there will still be death. So which one is it? One is about Jews, one is about non-Jews. So apparently, again, by Jews there won't be death, by non-Jews there will be death. What are non-Jews doing in Moshe Mashiach? In other words, like what? Which is interesting. Like, is there tchias amesim for non-Jews? Like, what is that? So the Gemara says, "My Baal Hasam hanaf t'chsib bahu v'amdu zarim u'reut son achem u'beninecha ikar mekomid." So I'll say, because again, apparently there will be non-Jews. First of all, there's a whole discussion in terms of like righteous Gentiles, what they have, both in Olam Haba and Yemos HaMashiach. But interestingly enough, this Gemara seems to reflect the idea that Yemos HaMashiach is much more of like a spiritual experience in which we will have others to tend to our material needs. So there'll be a Gentile population to attend to the material needs of Am Yisrael, who will be fully focused ultimately again on the spiritual growth. Now, interestingly enough, this is embedded in the whole sub-machlokes, which is, what is the Messianic era, right? What is it? Is it like this supernatural world, or is it pretty much olam kimin hagonohe, the regular world? So again, that's the backdrop to these discussions. That's the backdrop to like what happens with sickness, what happens with death, right? Clothed, unclothed, all of these things are really embedded in that backdrop as to what exactly does the Messianic era look like. But whenever the Gemara has these machloksim, Gemara always quotes the same passage, which is "Ayin lo rasa l'kim beladecha," and I never saw it except for you, Hashem. In other words, we have these machloksim. These questions are fascinating, but at the end of the day, what's the answer? What's the answer? We'll know when we know. We'll know when we know. Okay. Rav Chisda Miksiv. Rav Chisda brought up also contrasts of psukim. V'chafra levana ubo sha'achama kimalach Hashem tzivakos. Miksiv v'haya or halavana ka'or achama. So it's interestingly enough, there's two different psukim. First pasuk seems to indicate that the luminaries, the sun and the moon, will actually be darkened in the Messianic era. And second pasuk seems to indicate that they'll shine even brighter, that even the moon will shine as bright as the sun. So which one is it? Which one is it? The Gemara says as follows: Lokasha kalimos Mashiach kal olam haba. I suppose say this is interesting. One is talking about the Messianic era, and one is talking about ultimately again Yemos HaMashiach. So I'll say, so what does this mean? So apparently Yemos HaMashiach in Olam Haba, here's the light of Hashem. Where there is only the light of Hashem, the light of the luminaries is dimmed. In Yemos HaMashiach, that's when all the luminaries will shine even brighter. With Shmuel, the Amar Ein Bein Olam Hazeh Yemos HaMashiach Ala Shibud Golios Filbad. But according to Shmuel, who says that there is no distinction between this world and the Messianic era, except Shibud Golios. Shibud Golios literally means we're not enslaved by any other nation, but more than that, it means everyone leaves us the heck alone. Right? Everyone leaves us alone, which, by the way, would be the greatest miracle of all time. Like, we don't need your help, we don't need your love, we don't need this. Just leave us alone. That's Shibud Malchus. Plus, of course, there's a recognition, ultimately, again, of the oneness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So how do you understand this whole thing about the luminaries? Like Hashem, Kama Machan Tzadikim, Kama Machan Shechina. This is beautiful. Because the Rebbe Shalom himself shines bright. In the camp of Tzadikim, that's where the luminaries shine even brighter. Incredible. Rava Rami Ksiv, so Rava contrasted to Psukim, Ani Amisva'ach Yaw Ksiv, Machatzti Va'ani Erba. So listen, this is interesting. So the pasuk says, literally Hashem says, I brought death and I will bring back to life. Machatzti, I broke and I will heal. So the Gemara says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Mashi Nemes Ani Mechayer, V'Hadar Masha Machatzti Ani Erba. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, that which I took life from, I will give life to, and that which I broke, I will heal. This goes back to what the Gemara said before, that how does Tchias Amisim work? Where Tchias Amisim works is first, the dead are brought back to life, but they're brought back to life with all of their health issues, handicaps, problems, challenges, and then what happens? Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and heals them. Almost like to amplify the miracle of Tchias HaMesim. That again, we come back how we were, and then ultimately again the healing process. Of course, you said the one part that the Gemara doesn't discuss over here, which is interesting for the $5 million question, is how old are we? Like when do we come back? Like what is it? I'd rather come back a little younger. It would be nice. It'd be nice. So that again. So I was like I said, remember, as many of these questions, so to speak, as we're addressing, there's a million other ones, right? Say like there are shadows that ask like a person was married more than once, right? Who do they come back with? Right? It gets a little awkward. How does that work? So there's like a lot of stuff. Or what if you weren't happy the first time around? The second chance. To do things a little bit differently. So there's a lot of discussions with this. So like I said, the Gemara is attempting to give us insight and give us a window, but at the end of the day, remember, it's always going to be, the picture is always going to be incomplete. So the Gemara goes like, so ultimately Hashem says, I cause death and I bring back to life. Sorry, I thought maybe it means Hashem causes some people to die, other people to live. You see today, therefore the end of the pasuk comes along. It says Hashem says literally, I broke and I will heal. Just like breaking and healing is talking about the same person. So too again, life and death is also in the same person. And I will say this serves as a proof to Tchias HaMesim. Incredible. Tanya Amar Rabbi Meir. How do we know about resurrection of the dead in the Torah? I will say this is fascinating because here the Gemara is now quoting a pasuk from the Torah. Right? Up until now, most of the psukim, except for Atem Azdekim Hashem Elokeinu like we saw in yesterday's daf, most of the psukim, as you can see, are from Navi. How do we know there's different Navi? How do we know? Because we have no idea what they're talking about, right? So that's a Mefurish Raya that it's from Navi. Right? So the Gemara says as follows. So now I have a pasuk from the Torah. Az Yashir Moshe Bnei Yisrael Sashir Azos. So then it says, then Moshe and Klal Yisrael will sing. Sharlo Ne'emar. It doesn't say they sung, right? It doesn't say as Shar Moshe Bnei Yisrael. Moshe and Bnei Yisrael sung the song. Rather, Yashir, future tense. What's the future tense? This is a proof to Tchias HaMesim. Right? Future tense that there will be a time in the future that Moshe and Klal Yisrael will sing. Similarly again, Atomer, as Yivne Yoshua Mizbeach LaHashem. Yoshua will build a Mizbeach for Hashem. Banalo Ne'emar, it doesn't say he built it, rather Eva Yivne. So we'll say what this represents is there'll be some time in the future when these great people will do these things. There'll be a time in the future where Moshe Rabbeinu will sing. Moshe Rabbeinu is dead. So how is Moshe Rabbeinu going to sing? Yoshua will build. Yoshua is dead. So how can Yoshua build? As Yibn Shlomo Bana L'Kamosh Shakot Moab. So also I say, interestingly enough, that the pasuk says that Shlomo Melech is actually a crazy pasuk. Shlomo Melech built a mizbeach for Kamosh, who was one of the deities, one of the idolatries of Moab. Does that mean that Shlomo will build an actual mizbeach for Avodah Zarah? Ella ma'ala alav akasav kilu bana. No, that's a different pasuk. Shlomo Melech never has built a mizbeach for Avodah Zarah. I said, why does it say that he did? Because Shlomo Melech did not curb the Avodah Zarah appetites of his wives, and as a result, his wives worshipped idolatry in his home, and he did nothing to stop it. Because he did nothing to stop this errant behavior in his home, he's held accountable as if he did it himself. Incredible. From it's beautiful. Tell him. So literally, praiseworthy are those who dwell in your home. Right? They will go ahead and praise you. So the Gemara says, it doesn't say they praise you present, rather what does it say? Future tense. They will praise you. They will praise you. So Moses says, so what is this future praising? Future praising is a remes to Tchias HaMesim. Beautiful. Says the Gemara, beautiful Gemara. Whoever says Shira, whoever sings to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world, will be privileged ultimately again to sing Shira in the world to come. Shne'emar Ashrei Yoshe Vesecha Odi Aluchasal. So we'll say so much to say about this Gemara. What does it mean if you say Shira in this world? You sing praise to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world. Ultimately, again, you will sing the Tchias HaMesim on the most basic level. On the most basic level, what it means to say The Olam Haba you have is a direct reflection of the Olam Hazeh you create for yourself. There's another piece to this as well. Let's say, what is Olam Haba? What is Olam Haba? The Rambam writes, Olam Haba is Tzadikim Yoshvim v'ataraseim barashem v'nenem mizid hashchina. So ultimately, again, the righteous sit, right? They sit around the Kadosh Baruch Hu. The deeds of the crown of their good deeds is upon their head, and they derive benefit from the Shechina. That's Olam Haba. I will say, sometimes a person is down and they're like, is there like a tea room? Is there like a Shreki coming? Is a Chalamayka? Is that it? Is that it? And also a lot of times you see, yeah. That sounds really good. You're right. Olam Haba is only meaningful if at the end of the day, you value a relationship with Hashem and Olam Hazeh. If a relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not my priority in this world, then Olam Haba doesn't look all that appealing. Because all Olam Haba is connection to Hashem. So if that is something that I value in this world, and I strive for in this world, then Olam Haba is something amazing. But if Olam Hazeh really is much more all about the material, and all about the enjoyment, and all about the stuff, and all about the acquisitions, which are beautiful and important, but if that's pretty much what life is all about, Olam Haba is a big letdown, a tremendous letdown. So it's interesting. If you want to enjoy Olam Haba, but Olam Hazeh has to look a certain way. And perhaps that's the Gemara saying over here as well. If you see Shira in this world, in other words, if this life is about connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then at the end of the day, Olam Haba will be great. But if not, if Olam Hazeh really is just about the material or just about the mundane, Olam Haba doesn't sound all that exciting to you. I'm Rabbi Yochanan. Minay l'tchias anisim min haTorah. Shneimar. We're not from this from haTorah. Shneimar. Kol sofach anasu kol yachtav yiranenu. Rimiru lo ne'emar el yiranenu. Mikan l'tchias anisim min haTorah. So once again, the voices of sofach, of those of your son, the Nevi'im, of those who see you, right? They will go ahead and call out yiranenu. They will praise you. Future tense. Once again, future tense, not present. So Rabbi Yochanan. Asidim kol Nevi'im kulan omrim. Shira v'kolecha. This is so beautiful. In the future, all of the Nevi'im will say Shira with one voice. We'll say Shnei Amar, Kol Tzofech Nasu Kol Yachtav Yiranenu. We'll say how beautiful is that? All the Nevi'im speaking in one voice, right? All of the leaders of Klal Yisrael speaking in one voice. How incredible is that? How overwhelming is that? How beautiful. That's Emos Mashiach. As now, again, as we saw, remember, every Nebuah was different. We saw this already before. But nevertheless, speaking in one unified voice. Amar Yehuda Amar Rav. Kol Moreh Halacha B'Talmud. Ki'ilu goes lo minach v'asavosav. So I'll say this is profound. If a person is capable of teaching Torah, but withholds their Torah from their Talmud, withholds Torah from the Talmud, I will say, this could be a Rebbe, this could be a parent, this could be anyone. Whereas I have the ability to impart Torah upon someone. But I don't do is I withhold it. It's as if you're stealing that person's inheritance. Isn't that incredible? So we'll say, so again, I have the ability to convey Torah to someone. I don't convey it. It's as if I'm stealing their inheritance. Shne'emar Torah tzivalana Moshe Morasha Kihilas Yaakov. Morasha Ki L'chol Yisrael Mishesh Shnei Bereshis. So we'll see, you hear the pasuk refers to Torah. It's a Morasha. Morasha is an inheritance. It's our inheritance from the beginning of time, from Sheshes Yimei Bereshis. Rashi points out there wasn't in Mishesh Shnei Bereshis. So again, Rashi points out the Sid Bereshis Bara the Shirator Shnei Bereshis. Remember Rashi, first Rashi in Torah. Bereshis Bara. What does Bereshis in the beginning? Hashem created. Bereshis is a contraction. Real Bereshis. Because of that which was created first, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. The world was created for Torah. Torah was given to Klal Yisrael, and therefore, again, if I withhold Torah from someone who I could give it to, it's as if I'm taking their inheritance.
How'd you find out about me? How'd you find out about me? Jewish history lectures. How'd you find out about me, Crystal? How did you find out about me? All right, would you please tell me how you found out about me? I'd sincerely appreciate it.
I find you through Kit.com.
Oh, okay, great. Did I clip one of your streams?
No, your Discord thing is like on different people, content creators stuff.
Word, dog. Absolutely. Okay, so did you see? Did I post it in someone's chat, or did I make a clip of somebody?
You know, from a clip and it had like your Discord tag on it.
Excellent. Well, very well. How's your day going?
Good.
Excellent. Anything big on your agenda?
No, not really, man. You just chill it out.
Very well. Do you mind if I tell you about myself?
Sure.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Rabbi Rothschild. I stream my life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for world peace. I've been doing so for more than 3.5 years. My streams go back to the pandemic. We've seen the death of a queen, the birth of AI, the coronation of a king, and everything in between. Pistol, are you familiar with the movie The Truman Show or the television show Big Brother?
No.
All right, well, it's essentially a story of someone whose entire life's on camera, as is mine. If you weren't aware, in 2018, The Economist magazine stated that data was Earth's #1 resource, overtaking petroleum, which means data is Earth's more valuable than food, water, air, gold, everything. And I have more data archived on the internet than any person ever, which may make me an influential person someday. And if that happens, if you want, I want to make you, your friends, your family, all independently wealthy if you're not already. I want to make sure that you have generational wealth if you don't already. And I want to make sure that you have the ability to start charities and philanthropic organizations of your own. How does that sound, Pistol?
That sounds good, man.
Excellent. I talk about other things to help the world, like ending world hunger through the use of technology such as agricultural drones, floating greenhouses, saltwater greenhouses, things like hydroponics, vertical farming, cloud seeding. I want to help end world thirst. I'm sponsored by a cryptocurrency that's worth about $100 million. And one of the things that we do is we build wells in developing nations like Nigeria for the benefit of the less fortunate. Additionally, I'm an advocate for the LifeStar program, and most importantly, desalination technology, where we pump Earth's seawater onto land to make it drinkable. How does that sound to you?
That sounds awesome, man.
That's great to hear, Pistol. I'm a futurist. I'm someone who likes to study the future. Other things I like to discuss are things like anti-gravity, antimatter, faster than light travel, faster than light communication, artificial narrow intelligence, artificial general intelligence, artificial superintelligence, things like space elevators, space tourism, terraforming of other planets, interstellar travel. I like to talk about things like teleportation and things like Santa Claus machines, replicators. I like to talk about things like de-extinction. People don't know this, but the first successful de-extinction took place in the year 2003 with the Pyrenean ibex, which was a goat located in northern Spain, southern France. Fast forward to the year 2021, a company out of Dallas, Texas is founded known as Colossal Bioscientific. They've made it their goal that within the next 3 years, or by the year 2028, to reintroduce the woolly mammoth into the Arctic Circle utilizing Asian elephant surrogates. I just think this is a mind-blowing goal, and I find it to be a privilege. All right, well, you don't have to think it's cool. Where?
Kalmane halacha be Talmud. If a Rebbe withholds halacha from a Talmud, in other words, a Rebbe has an ability to teach a Talmud, and he doesn't do so, listen to this, such a Rebbe is cursed even by fetuses in utero. It's intense. Shneimar, Monea bar tap of Tzadik Beis. Monea bar, Yikavo la'om. Ve'ein la'om ela. Ubrin la'om means ubrin fetuses. Shneimar, ula'om la'om yamatz. Ve'ein kavo ela. Klala kavo means cursing. Shneimar, ma'akov lo kavo kel, by Bilom. Vein bar elator. Bar means Shneimar, Nosh gubar pen iyana. So we'll say, what does this mean? What does this mean? Someone who doesn't say that like someone who's Mechal Shabbos is cursed even by fetuses. What does it mean? So the Rebbe didn't teach the Talmud Torah, and therefore what? And therefore he's cursed even by the fetuses. Like what's the pshat with that? Was that sometimes the worst thing that a person could do is withhold the growth opportunity from someone else. We make a mistake that sometimes the greatest things we accomplish are the things we do for ourselves. And that's not true. Sometimes the greatest things you do in life is the growth that you enable in the other. When you do something for someone else, so what is it we're talking about here? A Rebbe has an opportunity to teach a Talmud. A Rebbe has an opportunity to give over halacha to a Talmud, which means you have the ability to be the enabler of someone else's growth. And I don't do that. That's an abdication of the highest level of personalistic responsibility. That's my avoda. Our avoda in life is not going to enable our own growth, but it's to enable the growth of others. And failure to do so, the world curses you for that. Incredible. So the Gemara goes right there. Ula bar Yishma Omer, v'naktin oso kikavra. If you withhold Torah from a student, literally again, so it means they pierce you like a sieve. Okay, I want to say now, what Rashi points out with this, what does it mean pierce like a sieve? It means you forget your learning. Just like right, if you put something into a sieve, the contents filter through. A Rebbe who doesn't share his Torah with other people loses his learning. Because if he doesn't share it, what does that show? That shows that he thinks that his Torah is his. Torah is not yours. Nothing. We know in life, nothing is mine. Right? Nothing belongs to us. Everything that Hashem gives me, whether it's my money that He gives me ultimately to do good for others, or again, it's my Torah that He gives me to convey to others. That's the whole avodah of life. And therefore, if I don't share my Torah with others, ultimately, I lose it. Ula bar Yishmael Omer menakvin osber. Ksiv hacha yikabu la'om ksiv hasam vayikov chor b'dalto. Va'amar Abaye ki ochla dikitziri. Literally perforated like a launderer's basin. All right, in Lamdo. And what happens if you teach someone Torah? So says, this is all the punishment if you withhold Torah. What happens if a Rebbe fulfills his obligation and teaches his Talmidim Torah? What's his reward? Amar Sheshes Zocha lebirchas Yosef. Rachos ki Yosef. This is incredible. So such a Rebbe, and when we say a Rebbe, I just want to point out, a Rebbe doesn't have to be a rabbi, doesn't have to be a Rebbe, right? A Rebbe is anyone who has the ability to give over Torah to someone. So you take your Torah and you share Torah. I can't tell you how important this is. One of the most incredible things that sometimes we don't realize that we have the ability to do is to have a chavrusa with someone. And especially sometimes, again, there are different types of chavrusas. Sometimes we're talking about chavrusa and both of you are on the same level. Sometimes you have a chavrusa with someone and you have the opportunity to really help someone grow in their learning. You become a Rebbe. It's a Rebbe Chavrusa, it's a Rebbe Chavrusa partnership. And I will say that is the most profound thing. We think whenever we see these Gemaras, we automatically shift, he's talking about a Rebbe, a rabbi, a Rebbe. No, this is every single one of us. If you take, all of us have Torah, and all of us can convey it. And if you convey that Torah, what happens? Zocha lebirchas ki Yosef. You are privileged to have brachos like Yosef. Shene Emar, ubracha l'rosh mashpir. Ve'in mashpir elo Yosef. Shene Emar, Yosef was shalit ala aretz. Who mashpir l'chol am haaretz. So we'll say, by the way, so what's the pshat? What's the pshat if someone shares their Torah, they get brachas like Yosef? Why not bracha like Avram? Why bracha like Yosef? What was the entire avodah of Yosef? Yosef took his brachas, and what did Yosef do with his brachas? What did he do with it? He shared it with everyone else. That was the entire essence of Yosef. Right? Yosef, after everything that he had been through, had every right to say, forget about the rest of you. I'm not going to take revenge, I'm not helping you, I'm not doing anything for you. But instead, every single bracha that comes Yosef's way, what does he do? He takes it and he uses it to help the other. That was Yosef. That was Yosef HaTzadik. This is beautiful. Wow. Let's say whoever teaches Torah in this world is Zocha to teach it in the world to come. Now, by the way, what does that mean? Once again, remember, we always come back to our question of what's Olam Haba? What does the Gemara mean? Is Olam Haba where you go when you die? Is Olam Haba the Messianic era? Either way, it's really good. Right? I will say that if you teach Torah in this world, it is welcome to teach Torah in Olam Haba as well. Which I will say, hopefully means also that the people you learn Torah with, and the Hashem will be zocha to learn in this world and the next world. Also, can you imagine if we have our chabula, if we have our share in Olam Haba? I feel like we'll be able to move faster, right? I thought we'll be able to move faster, but in Hashem, I'll say how incredible would that be? So the Gemara goes like the Shnei Amar. Pasuk says, so there's no time in Olam Haba. At least in the afterlife of death, right? That'll be better. So once again, by the way, you see this fixation, by the way, with Chesames, right? I don't know if there's any other Gemara that tries to bring so many rayas for a concept, right? This is now already 3 blot. Feels like 7 blot, but it's actually even 1.5 blot. Right, so 1.5 blot in, right? That again, minayin. So first of all, because again, the notion of Chesamesim is such an incredibly important episode that the Gemara wants to find as many proofs for it as we can. So Reuven will live and he will not die. Parshas Vayechi. Yechi Reuven ba'olam hazeh. No, not Parshas Vayechi. Sorry. So it's not brachos. Those brachos. It's not the brachos of Yaakov. It's the brachos of Moshe Rabbeinu. Yechi Reuven ba'al yomos. Yechi Reuven ba'olam hazeh. Reuven will live in this world. Ba'al yomos li'olam haba. And he will not die in the world to come. Avinu Amar Mehalta. Avinu says from here. The Rabbi Mishne Admas Afar Yakitzu. Elu l'chai olav ve'elu l'char f'lesul giron. So I'll say, incredibly enough, a number of these psukim, this from Daniel, are actually quite explicit, right? So many of those who sleep in the earth will wake back up, some to the world to come and some for degradation. And now ultimately, again, you go to your place and rest, but stand, right, literally again, return the Garalecha, return for your destiny at the end of days. Well, it's actually interesting because a number of these psukim, we actually say the kavura. This is actually the pasuk that we say after the kavura is completed. Before the Avelim leave the kever and walk back through the shur, walk back through the line, we actually, it's not a halacha, but it's a minhag. Many have the minhag to actually recite this pasuk, addressing it in the Shema. Rabbi Lazar called any leader who leads his flock, who leads his tzibor, benachas. Now, what does benachas mean? Benachas means with a gentle kite. A gentle kite is not yelling, is not screaming, is not fire and brimstone, not demeaning them, not benachas. So such a person like this is zocheh to lead that tzibor olam haba as well. I will say, these Gemaras really seem to indicate that Olam Haba here is a reference to Messianic era, right? Post-Tchias HaMesim era. Shenei Amar, Ki Merachim Yinhagim V'Amagui Ma'iminar. Remember, Lazar, Gedolah Dea, this is incredible, Gedolah Dea, Shenitna Ben Shtei Osios. Dea, wisdom. Now we're going to define what wisdom is in a little bit. Wisdom is great. Why? Because it was given between, it literally means between 2 letters. What it actually means is between 2 names of Hashem. Shnei Amar, Hikel Deos Hashem. So once you see that, Deos is mentioned in the middle of Kel and Hashem. So the Gemara says that's incredible if something is given over between 2 names of the Ribono Shel Olam. Rabbi Lazar says Gadol Mikdash. But they say Mikdash is great. Shnitan Ben Shnei Osios, because it was given over between 2 names of Hashem. Shnei Amar, Ha'alta Hashem Mikdash Hashem. So once again, Mikdash is sandwiched between 2 names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Maskif Ravada, Masadai Ravada, Karchino Elameata, Gidola Nekama, Shenitna Ben Shnei Osios. Oh, you're going to use that model. And Nekama, vengeance. Vengeance is also great because vengeance is given between 2 names of Hashem. The Siv, Kel Nekamos Hashem. Right? The pasuk says, right? Kel Nekamos Hashem, Kel Nekamos Sophia. Amarle, the Milse Hachinam. Right? By the way, vengeance has its place. Absolutely. Vengeance, as much as we always think about vengeance as a negative thing, vengeance is not a negative thing. Sometimes vengeance is very powerful and very appropriate. So why do I need 2 revelations? Right, things like a revelation. So why 2 revelations? That doesn't say revelation twice. That just says Sophia once. But it says Nekama twice. Almost like two revelatory Nekama moments. So what does that mean? So the Gemara says, Achas lamida tova, va'achas lamida vengeance for bad. So vengeance for good could be that HaKadosh Baruch Hu repays good. Right? To take revenge means to repay. Or it can also mean that sometimes, like we said before, sometimes vengeance is good. Sometimes vengeance is in our favor, especially when it's taken out on those who have oppressed us. And sometimes vengeance, chas v'shalom, can be punitive in nature. So I'm Rabbi Lazar, call Adam Sheish Bodea, this is a beautiful Gemara. Call any person who has Dea, who has understanding, it's as if the Beis Hamikdash was built in his days. Why? Because ultimately, again, as we just said before, Dea is between two names of Hashem, and Mikdash is between names of Hashem. Now, what that means, what exactly that means? Any person who has Dea, has wisdom, is as if the Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt. We're going to come back to that Gemara, so you can underline it, we're going to come back to it after we get a working definition of really what Dea means. Fine. Okay, yeah, give it a few more minutes. I'm Rabbi Lazar, actually right now. I'm Rabbi Lazar, call Adam Sheish Bodea, the Sof Misasher. Any person who has Dea will become wealthy. Shene'emar, u'b'das charidim yimalu kol hon, yikar v'noim. I'm Rabbi Lazar, call Adam She'ein Bodea, aslu rachim alav. Any person who doesn't have Dea, ultimately, again, you can't have Rachmanas on you. Shene'emar, ki lo am binasu, akim bo yirachamenu al se'o v'yotzer lo yichalenu. Rabbi Lazar, calls Hanosim Kita L'Mishein Bodea, Yisrum Bar Alav. Whoever gives bread to someone who doesn't have Dea, ultimately, again, bad things will happen. So we'll say, it's very interesting. So you see this Gemara, you can't have compassion upon someone who doesn't have Dea. You can't go ahead and give your bread to someone who doesn't have Dea. Now we'll say, now, what's the pshat with this? What's the pshat with this? So we'll say, just let me say this now. What's Dea? What's Dea? So we translate it as wisdom. I will say, but what if you think about this just from a basic perspective, what is the core component of wisdom, right? What is like the most basic aspect of wisdom? What's wisdom? So it's interesting. Remember again, Chazal, right? Remember Sakis Brachas. It speaks about Havdalah and Shmona Esrei. Chazal said, where did Chazal put Havdalah? Where does Havdalah go? Atachonin la'adam das. The most basic concept of das is the ability to be matching, the ability to distinguish between Kol Yeshachol. Das and its most big. Before you get into all the deeper layers of what wisdom actually means, what wisdom means on its most core level is I can distinguish between right and wrong. I can distinguish between Kodesh and Chol. I can distinguish between Tameh and Tar. And I will say that is something that every single person has the ability to do. You know, to be a chacham, right? Because remember again, there's chachma, there's bina, there's that. Okay, so chachma, bina, those might be higher levels, and maybe not every person has the ability to access it. But to have das, to be the kind of person who knows what's right and what's wrong, and to make the right decisions in life, every single person has the ability to meet that threshold. And failure to do so is only one person's fault, and that's mine. And that's why Chazal say, if somebody doesn't have Dea, don't have Rachmanas on them. Don't have Rachmanas on them. Why? Because they're hurting themselves. They're not a victim of anything. They're hurting themselves. Someone doesn't have Dea, don't give them bread. Right? Why? Because you are enabling an errant lifestyle. I will say a person has to have a basic moral compass through which they know what's right and what's wrong. And if they don't have that, if you help them, you're enabling them to continue on that broken path. And that's why the Gemara says over here, as I when it says, any person who has Dea, right? Ultimately, again, because once at the end of the day, there's only really one thing I need in this world to be successful. Dea. I have to know what's kosher, what's trade, what's tameh, what's tahar, what's kodesh, what's chol, what's mutter. I'm good. The rest, I'll acquire or I won't. But as long as I have Dea, I will be successful. Conversely, if I don't have Dea, number one, if I don't have Dea, it's my fault. Don't blame it on anyone else. If I don't have Dea, it's my fault. And failure to acquire it is the highest level of personality culpability. To the point, you can't even help out a person like that. Such an overwhelming and incredible Gemara. And that's why the Gemara says, all right, this is like, right. I'm Rabbi Lazar. That's why, again, if you give your bread to someone who doesn't have Dea, you, the giver, will suffer. Why? Because you are enabling someone. You are enabling someone to continue down the wrong path in life. Shene'emar, lach lecha yasimu mazor tachtecha, bein tvuna bein mazor al yisrun shene'emar, vayar harmis chayav yehudas mazor. I'm Rabbi Lazar. Kol adam she'im bo Dea, sofa gola. Person who doesn't have Dea, will ultimately be exiled. Makes a lot of sense. Why? Because it will say, if I don't have Deo, chances are I won't be able to build a solid life. I won't be able to build a relationship. Because if you don't know what's right and what's wrong, you can't build relationships. It's as simple as that. It's like there are people who who refuse, not that they can't, they refuse to see right from wrong. They'll make every single excuse why what they're doing is okay, even though it's clearly not. You can't build relationships. Can't build a home, can't build a life. As soon as the soft gola will be a wonder. Shnei Amar, lachin gola ani mivli das. Amar Lazar, kavai she'im bodi reitor nishma b'balai love. Eishav Lazar. We'll say another incredible Gemara. That's Dea. We'll say this is a ridiculous Gemara. Any home in which words of Torah are not heard in at night. So in other words, any home in which there's not Torah learning at night. Eish ochlasa, a fire will consume it. Shnei Amar, kol choshech tamol tzfunav, tochleo eish lo nofeach yara, surid ba'ohalo. Ve'in surid al tam chacham, tzam chacham, Shnei Amar, u'b'svidim asher Hashem korei. But fine, so what does that mean? Any home in which Torah is not learned at night, fire will consume it. That's a pretty strong thing. Especially it tells us, it's very important, the need, in addition to coming to shul for night seder. And there are beautiful newspapers, which again, everybody has an obligation on night seder. Even if it's for 15 minutes, everybody has an obligation for night seder. It's not a shayla. It's not like, I'll dabble in this. It's a chiyuv. It's a yahar gal yavar. One of the gilul chamuros, right? So you have to have night seder. But really, it's actually, I'm not joking around. Like a yid has to come to his medrash to learn a little bit at night, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. I start my morning in front of his medrash. But in addition to that, a person also has to learn at home. Person has to have Torah in their house, right? And it's so important for so many different reasons. A wife should see her husband learning Torah. Children should see their father learning Torah. The walls of my home should see me learning Torah. So what's the pshat when the Gemara says over here that any home in which Torah is not heard at night, fire consumes it? Perhaps it means like this. Night is always a metaphor for difficulties. Right? That's like Laila is always a metaphor for difficult times. The rest of the Gemara means like this. Kol bayis, she'ein divrei Torah nishma'in bo balayla. Right? So any home in which Torah is not heard at night. In other words, any home where things become difficult, the Torah stops. Right? In other words, as soon as it becomes Laila, as soon as life becomes difficult, the first thing that kind of goes away is Torah. Just understand, Eish ochlasa. Fire, not literal fire. Fire is also destructive. Destructive forces will consume it. If during difficult periods in life, the first thing that gets stopped is spirituality, just understand the fire of the negative circumstances, along the circumstances, will consume that home. The staying power of a home, the staying power of anything in life, is rooted in its connection to Ruchnius. So if even during the Laila periods of life, there is Torah in my home, there is Torah in my life, then I will be saved from the ravaging effects of even the most difficult of life circumstances. Conversely, if in the moment that difficulty set in, the first thing that goes is Torah, the first thing that stops is Torah, then Eishach Lasa. Then the fire of every single difficult circumstance will ultimately consume me, consume my home, and consume all the circumstances. So I have to stop over this incredible Gemara. I have to stop over here. Shkoyach. By the way, we did more than a blot today. Fantastic. Right, wrong blot, but that's the detail. I think tomorrow's going to be our catch-up day, because Mir Hashem much shorter Gemara. Mir Hashem, Shkoyach everyone. Such a Shkoyach everyone. Sure. It's not a bad idea. At all. Oh, was it under the also? All right. Yeah. All right, good morning. Let us begin. I thank all of our sponsors for this morning trip. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for Top Shinpei. It's also very self-dedicating all the Shulman junctions this year as his first for the Soul Tovos and his Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Adar. Above in the Torah, Terry and Steve Sin, right in the Terry's father, Dr. Harry Khan, C. Bush, Joseph Hakoni, and the Ziv and the Bin and Bernie families known as Mr. William Ziv, Ziv Ben Shmuel Yisrael Zechon Rabbi and America Torah Torah. All the Bin Shalom Slavin Aliyah, the families in the Kama, all those who will share and put come from Israel, show to the Hashem bring home all of our hostages and allow our holy soldiers to be successful and follow Maaseh Yedechem. Because with that, let us begin. Today's daf is Tzadik out of 91. We have a steep climb today, Hashem, but we're going to make it. We are picking up on Tzadik on days 90D. I got to count down from the top. So we are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, about 12 lines down from the top. Today we're in Shmuel Tana. So again, you should be sure they thought the following. Let's remember again, we're in the sugya of trying to find some type of scriptural allusion to Trias Amesu. Right from when we were just Christmas in the Torah. So what we ended up with yesterday is the passage that says, "Unisatan minanu es trumas Hashem Aaron Akoli." You shall give truma to Aaron. Now, everyone will say it's very interesting. Aaron received many things in life. The one thing he never ever received was truma. Why? Because truma only goes into effect when you go into Eretz Yisrael, and Aaron never made it into Eretz Yisrael. So at the end of the day, what can this mean? But ultimately, again, you give truma to Aaron. So remember again, it must be at the pasuk means that Tzias Amesu. So the Gemara says, the Gemara goes like, it's very short time, Aaron to Aaron. So what does it mean? You have to give truma to someone like Aaron. Meaning what? Ma Aaron Chaver Afron of Chavirim. Just like Aaron is a Chaver, just like Aaron again is a common Chacham, and therefore knows how to go ahead and deal with truma in the appropriate way. So too again, in general, you have to give to other Chavirim. On the other side, nice shame those things when we're playing our art. How do you know that you can't give truma to a Kohen who is ignorant? Sheme'emar, Li'am Yoshe Yushalayim, Moses, Malas will come with being among Yachziku, Utaras Hashem. Because again, the way the Pasuk phrases it is, you give the Bahan and Truma, that they should be strong in the Torah of the Ribono Shalom. Kala Maxik, Utaras Hashem, whoever is holding again the Torah of the Ribono Shalom, Yet Shlomo has a portion in Truma. The She'ena Maxik Utaras Hashem, and whoever is not holding strong in the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in Lomanas, does not have a portion. And I will say, this, as we're going to see, this is not as much punitive as it is just very important because Truma has a lot of details, Truma has a lot of obligations, and misuse of Truma can bring the attention. That penalty along with it. Whoever gives Truma to a Kohen who is an Amaretz, it's as if he gives it to a lion. Ma'ari suffix doris v'okal suffix in the doris v'okal. When you put food in front of a lion, there's a suffix. Will it tear it apart and eat it or not? Af koin amaretz suffix ochla b'tara suffix ochla b'tula. So too again, when you give something, when you give truma to a koin amaretz, a suffix. Will he eat it in a state of ritual purity? Will he eat it in a state of ritual impurity? And the Yochanan says, Afgorim lo nisa. If one gives truma to a kohen amaretz, he's causing the death of that kohen. How is that? So Shneimar, Umesu, Bol Kiechalalu. Because as mentioned before, that misuse of truma results in death penalty. You give truma to a kohen who doesn't know how to treat it with the appropriate sanctity. It's as if one is causing death to that particular kohen. So you are the Bera Veloza Ben Yaakov Tana, Afmasir Ava Ashma. You even cause the kohen to violate the Navin of Shnei Marzi. See also of an Ashma Ba'achalas Kachea. So what's really fascinating about all of this is, and just a very interesting motif, how, again, in these cases, you would think that giving truma to the kohen, of course, is an objective chesed. So giving truma to the kohen is only a chesed, is only something good if the kohen knows what to do with it. If he doesn't know how to handle the gift, then not only is it not a chesed, but in fact it's a liability for him. Tremendous Yisod in life as well, about when you give, it could be Yisod in parenting, about giving children things. It's a beautiful bracha for a parent to give children something, as long as what? The child knows how to handle it. To give a child something, it's a big yisod in technology, big yisod in many areas. To give a child something that might be objectively nice, but they don't know what to do with it, is not the parental gift, but instead it's creating tremendous liability. Okay, more was like that. Tanya, Rabbi Simon says, United Christmas in our Where do we find, again, a biblical allusion to Tchias HaMesim. Shneimar, the Gan HaKimosi as precedes is very interesting. Itam Laseis Lohem es Eres Kinan. The pasuk says, and I will uphold my bris, my covenant with them, to give to them, Lohem, to them, right? It does Lachem Lohem, Ela Lohem. This is very interesting. The pasuk doesn't say it. The Baruch doesn't say, "No, I'm upholding my covenant to give you lachem." Rather, it says lachem to them. Who is the them? If you look at Rashi, this is Rashi on the right side, about halfway down. Actually, a little more than halfway down. Elohem, the Mashma Shefiach Hakadosh Baruch Hu la'avosinu. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, sheyitin lahem Eretz Yisrael. So the pasuk makes it sound like such an interesting way to read the pasuk that again, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu was talking to Am Yisrael who was alive at the time, and we use the lashon of what? Of lachem, to you. Lachem means to them. Who's the them? The Gemara understands it's referring to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Give like Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, they were dead. They were long dead by the time HaKadosh Baruch Hu went to Egypt. Came to Israel. Rather, what do you see? That ultimately, again, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov will receive Eretz Yisrael. What does that show you? Tchias HaMesim. Tchias HaMesim. So the Gemara says, fine. Beautiful. Let's listen to this. The meaning now, who's in mean? I mean, it's like an apikores, someone who doesn't believe. Now, the truth is, we're going to see, we use the terms min, apikores very interchangeably. What we're going to see is, in fact, they really refer to different levels of heretics, I should say, people who don't believe in certain things. So we'll see the distinctions. Shalom means from Yomiyah. So the meaning is from where do you want the Hashem brings back the dead? Haralahem, Minat Torah, Minat Aviyim, and Minat Ksubim. The parable of Gamliel says, I'm going to bring you a proof from Torah, Aviyim, and Ksubim. Now, all of Gamliel's proofs, they rejected. We'll see what happens. Minat Torah. So number one, what's the guy in Minat Torah? The Sid, Hayor Shalom Moshe, Hincha Shochet Imavosecha, the Kam. This is pretty explicit. Hashem says to Moshe, you are going to literally again die. You're going to lay with your forefathers to come. And you are going to arise. Wow, pretty explicit. So how do they disprove it? No. They said it was a Leo. You're putting the comma in the wrong place. Amulo, the Dilma, the Kam Ha'am Hazeh, the Zana. No. So we read the pasuk is as follows: Moshe, you're going to die, and after you die, the Kam Ha'am Hazeh, the Zana. The people are going to rebel. When you die, the people worship idolatry. The Vakam is not going on Moshe, but rather the Vakam is going on who? On the people. Incredible. So the Gemara says, Minan Aviyim. Okay, so they rejected that first proof. Next, Minan Aviyim. What's the proof from Navi? Yechsev Yiyu Moisecha Nivasi Yipomun Hakitzu Vanenu Shokne Afar Kital Oros Taleka Be'eretz Refaim Tipa. So what's it saying in this puzzle? What do you see in this phrase? The phrase you see, Hakitzu Vanenu Shokne Afar. Those who sleep in the dust will once again wake up. Hakitzu Vanenu. And will sing praise to Hashem. That's a pretty clear statement. The Dilma makes him Shefi and Cheskel. Maybe that's referring to the dead that Yecheskel brought back to life. Who did Yecheskel bring back to life? That's the Atzamos, right? That's the value of dry bones. So that's a specific episode it's referring to. Next, Minak Ksuvim, from Ksuvim, Yechsev, Techikeka Kiyai Atov, Holich Ledodi V'Nesharim, Dovave Sifsei Yeshinim. So you're going to say the pasuk. Yeah, the pasuk makes reference to Shir Hashirim. Literally, again, that phrase, Dovave Sifsei Yeshinim. The lips of those who sleep will move. Sleep, a reference to death. Lips, they will move, meaning a reference to the idea that once again they'll speak. Yes, amazing. The Dilma of Ushin Rakshas Vaseba Alma. So the meaning said, so the meaning said to the meaning maybe that's referring to the fact that sometimes the lips of the dead move in the grave. Now, when do the lips of the dead move in the grave? So the Gemara says, the Gemara Yochanan is so beautiful. We should be showing you that. So beautiful. When a person dies, if someone says over a halacha, now by the way, halacha doesn't just have to mean a halacha. What that means is when a person dies and someone says over a piece of their Torah in this world, the deceased's lips move in the grave. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. It's a really beautiful idea. First of all, this idea that when a person leaves over Torah, a person leaves over lessons for their families, a person leaves over Yesodos that are said over even after they are no longer alive, by definition, it gives them a continued kingdom, a continued life, a continued reality in this world. So
how are you?
Dies, someone says over their Torah, someone says over their saying, someone
Can
says
you
over
hear me?
Yesod, the lips move in the grave. Incredible. So the meaning did not believe anything that Rabbi Gamliel said until Rabbi Gamliel gave them over the following idea. What was the following idea? Hashem Lavosechem, Laseis Lohem. So again, reference to Israel again, that Hashem I swore to give over to you. Now to say to them, it doesn't say Hashem is giving it over to you, rather what does it say? Ella Lohem, to them. Mikanot Ches Anisim in Torah. So from there you see ultimately again a reference to Ches Anisim.
You don't talk, you're going to get banned.
Incredible, because once again,
can you hear me?
Over to them. Who's the them? The assumption is this is Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So from there you see an explicit allusion to this idea that Hashem, that again the dead will come back to life. Incredible. Others say, but we look at a different passage. It's so beautiful. The Aten Hadvikim B'Hashem Elokechem Chayim Kulchem Hayom. Others say that it's from the passage. Now, literally translated, what does it mean? And you who cling to Hashem, your God, like Chayim Kulchem Hayom. So it seems to translate this: you will live fully today, or you are fully alive today. So saying to Gemara Pshita, the Chayim Kulchem Hayom. That's obvious. As most women is talking to them. So of course they're alive today. Even at a time when everyone else is dead, you will be alive. So the idea, the way the Gemara is using this pasuk is ultimately, again, you who cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Chayim Kulchem Hayom. Hayom means you will come back to life. And even on a day where everyone else is dead, you will come back to life. Such a beautiful and incredible yisod. So the Gemara is like, there's much to say about that pasuk as well, but if we have time, I'll come back to it later. Shalu Roman as Rabbi Yoshua and Chananya. So ultimately, again, the Romans asked Rabbi Yoshua and Chananya, what are they asking? So they asked Rabbi Yoshua and Chananya a two-pronged question. Number one, how do we know there's resurrection of the dead? And number two, how do we know that Hashem knows what's going to happen? Two-pronged question. So ultimately, again, Rabbi Yoshua and Chananya says, I can answer both of those questions from one pasuk. So again, Rabbi Yoshua and read the pasuk. Moshe, you're going to die. Become, and you're going to come back to life. So from here you see a remez to Tchias Hamesim. So the Gemara says, they said back to him, B'dilma, Bekama Amazeh V'zana. Okay, Moshe, that's not how to read the pasuk. Maybe when you read the pasuk is that ultimately Moshe, you're going to die. The Vakam doesn't go on Moshe's resurrection. Rather, what does Vakam go on? Vakam goes on ultimately, again, the Klais are going to rebel. So Rabbi Shimon said, fine, even if you say that, at least so again, even if you're not going to use this pasuk as a remez to Tchias Hamesim, you could at least use it for what? As a remez, as a scriptural proof that Hashem knows what's going to happen, right? Because again, here Hashem is saying to Moshe, you're going to die, and when you die, Klal Yisrael is going to rebel. Okay, incredible. So the Gemara says, "It's my name. You're going to show me Shemay of Ben Yochai. Be nice, Cheshbachol Mechai Nisim. You'll get Masha Asalios." So it says, "The Yochanan asked from Shemay of Yochai, how do I know Shebachol is going to bring back the dead? And how do I know that Hashem knows what is going to happen?" Shneimar Hincha Shochet Imavosecha V'Kam. Ultimately, again, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you are going to die, but you will come back. Incredible. So the Gemara goes like to Tanya, Amar Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, the Davar Zeh, Ziyafti Sifrei Minu. So Rabbi Eliezer says like this, in this matter, the books of the heretics have really been, they have forgeries. They're forgeries. How so? Shehayu Olin ain't Kesanisini Torah. Remember again, because these books of heresy said there is no resurrection. There's no resurrection. I said to them, Siyaftem Torastem, Velo Ha'elisem Biyadchem Klum. So number one, you forged the Torah. You forged the Torah, and it didn't work. So what's going on over here? Sha'atem Olin ain't Kesanisini Torah. You claim there is no Tchesanisim, and yet it says, Hayu Omer, Hikaris, Tikaris, Hanefeshahi, Avonava. So what's it? There is a double lashon of Hikaris, Tikaris. Why the double lashon? So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. Hikaris, Tikaris, Ba'olamazeh, Avonava, Le'ima. So what's it? Hikaris, Tikaris means that the sin will be cut off from this world. Avonava, its sin will remain with it. Le'imas, when is that? Lavi Olamava does not refer to the world to come. So from here you see ultimately again Raya for Tkesanesim. So the Gemara says Tikaris, good. Let me start that one. So understand why can't you learn both that from Tikaris? Hikaris in Olam Hazeh, Tikaris the Olam Haba. Which the Gemara says Habu Amrilei Dibra Torah Kalashon Melei Adam. Because if I would have said that, then the Mimim would have said no. That's just a colloquial expression. Okay, Kitanoi. So what says Machlok Kitanoi? Hikaris Tikaris Olam Hazeh, Tikaris Olam Haba. Did Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva understands the double lashon. Hikaris be cut off in this world. Tikaris in the world to come. The pasuk says he's blaspheming Hashem, he'll be cut off. But in Shlosha Olam Yesh, are there three worlds? Or then that means that there's three expressions of being cut off. So what's going on over here? So the verse says, rather, Ella, B'nifas Olam Hazeh, he'll be cut off in this world. He carries the Olam Haba, right? He carries be cut off in the world to come. And he carries Dibra Torah Kalashon Melei Adam. This refers to when the Torah speaks. Okay? Beinu Bishma ben Rabbi Akiva, Avona ba my Akiva. But both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, what do you do with the phrase of Avona ba? Look at this. This is beautiful. The Yachal, Afilu Asa Tshuva, you might have thought that this would be cut off even if he did Tshuva. So the Gemara says, Talmud Roma Avona ba. When is the sinner cut off? Only when? When it's Avona ba. When the sin remains within him. However, the Gemara says, Lo amarti ella bisman shavona ba. The only time the sinner is cut off is when the sin remains with him. But if the sinner does shuvah, then ultimately again he is not cut off. Incredible, both sides. So really fascinating. So again, what the point that you begin to see is, like we mentioned yesterday, there's no one pasuk that says there's Tkesanesim. Rather, what we have is a series of biblical, I should say Tanakh allusions. Is that right? Biblical allusions. Torah, Ksubim, different allusions, different hints, different ideas. Beautiful. Let's go back. We're not finished yet. Let's do this Gemara. Shala Cleopatra Malchus Rabbi Meir. Wow. Queen Cleopatra asked the following question of Rabbi Meir. We'll say, by the way, just you should know, Marsha points this out. Cleopatra is the queens, what Paro is the kings. So this is not like I think you start when you refer to Cleopatra as a particular person, but this was more a monarchical, Marsha says you see this from different usages in Shas. This is more a monarchical title than anything else. But anyway, it's pretty cool. So Cleopatra asks Rabbi Meir, Amra, Yegana the Chaim Shifti. Listen to this. She said, I know that the dead will come back to life. I know that the living die. This is the Atzitzu Merke Esav Aretz. I'm sorry. I know that the living will come back to life. So Cleopatra said, it's interesting, right? It's Cleopatra. I believe in Tkesanesim. Incredible. I know that the dead will come back to life. She goes to the pasuk, because again the pasuk says that literally they will sprout forth from the city that refers to Yerushalayim, like the grass comes out of the earth. So once again, it's interesting. This pasuk was actually not quoted in our previous conversations, but Cleopatra quotes this pasuk from Tehillim. Right? So I know that the dead will come back to life. So what's the shayla? Ella kishen omdin Omdin Arumin, Obimabushehan Omdin. Fascinating. When the dead come back to life, do they come back unclothed or do they come back in their clothing? Incredible. So Amala, so the Meir says that's the hatch. So Kavachomer Mefita, make a Kavachomer from a grain of wheat. How so? So the Gemara says, Umakita Shinipura Aguma. So the Kita, like the grain is buried unclothed. What does that mean? When you plant wheat kernels, when you plant the seed, it's just the seed. There's nothing else but the seed. And yet, Yotza, the Kamalavushin. Yet it comes out with many layers of clothing. Now, what does that mean, many layers of clothing? What it means is, again, the kernel itself it has many layers. It has a husk, it has different things on top of it. So you see from here, again, just like the seed burst into the earth unclothed, ultimately, again, it comes out with many layers. So the Gemara says, Tzadikim shenik barim b'revusheim, but Tzadikim ultimately, again, who are buried with their clothing, Allah has kama v'kama. Now, Tzadik ultimately, again, is buried not with clothing, but Tachlitim, but crowns. So the Tzadik who is buried with clothing, all the more so, he will come out clothed as well. So it's such a see. First of all, you just say stam. It's just like a fascination question. But then again, I believe in the resurrection of the dead. But how exactly does this work? When the dead come out of the grave, what is it? Unclothed, clothed. So what's interesting also is it could very well be clothing. We've seen this before. It's often a metaphor also for accomplishments. Right, with the garden, right? The Holy Sibir Adechalavan, the Shomar says in Mishnah. At all times, let your clothing be right. Let your clothing be right. So clothing represents accomplishment. So it could very well be that what Cleopatra is really asking like the following: when is Tiras Mason? How do you come back? How are you reborn? Are you reborn like Tabla Rasa, like naked, unclothed? Like new life, new person, mamish, like the new baby being born, cut on Chanel, like that. Or is your resurrected life somehow a continuity of your previous life? Are you born with your clothing? In other words, do you come back? And again, I have my nice clothing. I have my mitzvah. So again, it's a fascinating question. Is resurrection a continuation of my previous life? Do I come back with my clothing? Or again, am I born unclothed? Is it a brand new life? To which Rabbi responds, resurrected life is a continuity of previous life, which I want to say is so fascinating because what that does is it really urges us to maximize the life we have here in this world. Because the way I live here not only impacts me in this world, not only impacts me what we'll call Olam Haba, which is the place where I go after I die, but it even impacts me in resurrected life as well. Everything I do in this world follows me in the multiple stages and iterations of my life. Such a profound Gemara. I'm going to read so the Caesar the Gamliel. Amrisu Yushak Michael. I heard that you guys say that the dead come back to life. Okay, so it's interesting. So you're both Cleopatra, who believe in Theophilus, but just had some detailed questions about it. So you see already that the Caesar doesn't believe it. Caesar doesn't say. Caesar says, I don't understand. You guys say, you guys say, the Shach Michael, then we'll come back to life. I don't understand how that works. The dead,
look at this.
ultimately become dust.
This is motherfucking so funny.
Dust can't come back to life. So the Gemara says, top of Tzadik Alf 91a, Aruhu Barte, Shafte Dana Mahajak. So again, these students are fascinating. So the daughter of the Caesar said to the Gamliel, I got this, right? She wanted to answer this particular question. Okay, so she says, second line, page 91a, second line. There are two people, two fashioners, creators of stuff. Right? How do people? Each be eating, like Rashi says, the utensils. The people create utensils. One creates utensils from water, and one creates utensils from clay. So he's better. Which the Caesar is going to do, of course, in the light, of course, again, it's a much greater feat to create utensils from water than to create from clay.
Wait, that's fine. But why is George Hill so much tape this shit?
She said to him, so Hashem fashions people from water. Now, what does that mean, water? It's a reference to Zerah, to the drop of seed, which creates a baby. So, because what creates human life from literally minor from water, then Allah has come and become a created from dirt. In other words, right, it's a greater feat to create utensils from water than it is from clay. Then everybody agrees you can create utensils from clay. HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and creates life, ultimately again from water, can certainly go ahead and create life from clay, from dirt as well. Today in Yishmael Tanakh, Kavachomer is beautiful. Then you go to Kavachomer from the creation of glass. The creation of glass is yes, amazing. Makri's fruitless, Sha'amalon, Beruach, Basavadam. How is glass made? You blow glass. The glass is made through the breath of man. And Nishbaru, Yishman Takara. And even as glass breaks, you can melt it down and you can refashion it. Basavadam Shamuch Oshalat is called Alachas Kalabakama. Man who is made with the breath of Hashem. Bayipach Ba'apach, right? Hashem blew life into us. Alachas Kalabakama. All the more so that if it breaks, so to speak, and dies, it can be put back together. Such a profound tomorrow. Amar Yahu. Meaning Rabbi. So also just yeah. There's so much to say on each of these dwellings because each of these statements are tremendous metaphors for different aspects of our lives. But again, I underline this, so we'll come back to it sometime in the next session. So there was a particular non-believer, Amisu, you say the Shakti Fire, you guys say that the dead come back to life. So the one says, that the dead turn to dust, and how can dust possibly come back to life? Let me give you a marshal. The Melech Barthaladam, I'll give you a marshal. There was once a human king. And the human king said to his servants, the go and build me a palace. There's only one problem. There's no water, there's no dirt, and a place where I need you to build a palace. I need you to figure it out. Halchu Banu also. And Baruch Hashem, the subjects were able to figure out they built the king a beautiful palace. The young and Nafal, sometime later, the palace fell down. Amar. So the king says to his subjects, Kazu believe also the Makom Shiyish Afaronai. I want you to rebuild the palace, but this time I want you to build it in a place where there is water and there is dirt. Low, aid on your phone. And the subject said, we can't do it. We can't do it. We're unable to do it. So Kana Salahem, the king got very angry at them. The Makom Shemaim Ba'afar Benisem Aksha Sheshmaim Ba'afar Alachas Kamal Kamal. So the king said, I don't understand. You were able to build a palace when there was no water and dirt. You were able to pull it off. Now that I'm giving you water and dirt, you can't pull it off. So what's the result? As far as creates man from nothing. As far as creating the world from nothing. So if Hashem is going to create from nothing, then even when man turns back into dirt is still something. So if you create from nothing, you're still going to create from something. That would be answer back to lesson. And if you don't believe without this idea of something turning into something else, say a little bit, go out into the valley, or see this particular type of rodent. Someone said there's a lot of discussion exactly about what they're talking about, what Chazal is talking about of this rodent, that apparently is half flesh and half earth. The Makar Vishmitz, the Nasa Kulabasar. The next day, ultimately, again, it comes completely flesh. So you see the evoking of things to transform from earth into flesh. Shema Tamar is Mamru, but maybe you'll say it takes a lot of time for this rodent to have this transformation. Allah Lahar, go up into the mountain, first wide line, Ure'ei Shayom in Boki Lazon, Elefilazon Echad. And it's in this particular mountain that on this day there's only one Filazon. Remember again, Filazon is that future from which the Tchelas is created. So you go up on the mountain, there's one Filazon. The next day the rain, and the Smali Kulo Chizlonos. Ultimately, and the mountain will be filled with Filazons. So again, the idea over here is number one, that earth could turn to flesh, right? Something could turn to nothing. And from the earth, again, things could sprout as evidenced by the Hiraz. It's incredible. And also, I think that there is a tremendous profundity in that much as well about the thing. I remember the much on the thing, what happened with he said to his building a palace. And he said, building a palace where there is nothing. There's no dirt, there's no water. There's no dirt, there's no water. And the subjects do it. Palace falls down sometime later, and then the king says again, build me a palace. Building a palace in place there is dirt and water. And the subjects say we can't do it, impossible. The king said, what are you talking about? You built the palace with nothing, Allah has spent time to build the palace with dirt and water. I think the metaphor is as follows. I would say, all of us have times in life where we are pushed to accomplish things that we do not think we can accomplish. Our back was up against the wall, we're in extenuating circumstances, difficult circumstances, and literally again, we pulled the proverbial rabbit out of the hat. I did it. Baruch Hashem. Really difficult circumstances, maybe even potentially difficult impossible circumstances, and I came through, I did it. And yet then, there are times day to day when my circumstances are not impossible, and I don't pull through.
Come on,
and I tell myself, I can't do it. I can't do it.
What is this?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Do you remember that time that you came through in impossible circumstances? Do you remember that incredibly stressful circumstance where again it wasn't clear if you would succeed or not, and you did, and you came through? If you could succeed in difficult, virtually impossible circumstances, if you could build the personalistic palace with no water and no dirt, then Allah has come of a time of day to day, when the circumstances are not difficult, you certainly can come through. And let's say we all have situations like this, where really difficult situations. If you don't have situations like this, is a piece of. I think almost all of us have situations like this, of really difficult circumstances where I said to myself, I don't want to be able to get through this. And I got through it. And I got through it. And I got through it, but I succeeded and I grew. And if I could do that in the extenuating circumstances in life, then I certainly could perform in day-to-day life. If I could make things happen where there was no dirt, there was no water, the more so I could build a personalistic palace where there is dirt and there is no water. Incredibly useful for life. You want those like that? How long have you know? Like the Rabbi, I will say this is a great series of stories. Let's take a name. We said to Rabbi ben Sisa. That's his name. Rabbi ben Sisa. Actually points out over here. Kach Shmo Bahai Summer Akmunius Bigabo. Interestingly enough, so this guy Rabbi ben Sisa, who himself was a shtickle town chacham, and he was a hunchback. We're going to see that part of the story in just a little bit. Rashi points out over here. There was a hunchback. Okay, so what happened? So there was a man who came over to him, and this man said to him, "Buy the phone, Chayvei, Yamiso Nisi Chayim, the Chayim Nisi, the Nisi Chayim." So they want this Apikar, so he goes to begin with the season. And he says, "What's the matter with you guys?" Speaking about the Jews, right? He calls the Jews Shun. You're Shun. Why you were Shun? Because you espouse false ideology. You say that the dead come back to life. It's not possible. It's not possible. That which is alive dies. Can you possibly say that which is dead comes back to life? Amalei. So the Rebbe Ben Sisa responds, "By the Kol Chayde, you're the Shayim. Ya'ami so Nesi L'Chayim. Telo Havi Chaya. Telo the Havi Chaya L'Kol Shekin." So the Rebbe Ben Sisa says back to that man and says, "Never Rasha. I'll tell you why. That which is not alive does come back to life. Every birth. How does every birth start? There wasn't life, and then life occurs. So you see, by definition, just simple propagation of the species requires no life to life. So we have paradigm for this. What are you talking about? You're the Russia. There's one where every single life starts with no life and then goes to life. So what's crazy to think that the dead could go back to life? So the year that we see so. He called this Apikoris a Russia. Amalei, Chayvei me. And the Apikoris says to the Sisa, "You're calling me a Russia? If I would be over there, you're lucky someone's holding me back, right? If I would come over to you, but if not the I would kick you so hard that I would kick out your hunchback. Right? That's what this is incredible, right? People are people, nothing changes over time, right? You're lucky my friend is holding you back. I would kick you so hard, I would kick you straight, right? I would kick you, but you would kick out your hunchback. So it's great. So the game is Amalei, and Ata also came, Rothai Uman, Tikra, Uskar Harvey Tito. Do it, man. You better do it. Absolutely. If you could do that, I would give you a shkoya. Not only will I give you a scrap, but I will pay you a handsome amount of money, handsome copay for that visit to the doctor. Incredible. So they don't have one. We're going to say this, now that's our introduction to Gavia ben Pesisa. The next number of stories we're going to be dealing with Gavia ben Pesisa as well. And we'll say we're going to see something fascinating just about his personality. Best of Rabbi Nisan, on the 24th of Nisan, is Natilu Dinusinoi Yehudam Yushalayim. So again, those are oppressors. Our oppressors left Yehuda and Yushalayim. Now again, what oppressors? So watch this. Kishibol b'nei Africa, Lagun and Israel. When the people of Africa came to the Romans with a legal claim against the Jewish people. What was their claim? They Alexander's Moscow. So again, actually, before Alexander the Great, Alexander the Macedonian, right? So they're not Rome, right? But they came before Alexander the Macedonian for the Jews like Alexander. Right? How do you know the Jews like Alexander? Because also there are Jews named Alexander, which is the strangest thing in the world. I don't mean an English name. I mean like a Hebrew name, Alexander, right? Which is very strange because considering it is not exactly a Yiddish name, right? It's not a Hebrew name. But again, this was Al-Sakar Satov that Jews had towards Alexander the Great. The name stuck. So the people of Africa come with a din Torah against the Jews. Allah, Eretz Canaan Shalom. What's their claim? The land of Canaan belongs us. I just want to point out, there is nothing new under the sun. Right? So before there was a Hague, right? Before there was any of these other mechanisms, the nations of the world were always bringing their legal claims against the Jewish people to say we don't own the land. By the way, Africa is a pretty big place. Eretz Yisrael, not so big, right? You wonder again, what does Africa need with Israel? What they need another desert, right? But again, I'll say, this is the derech of humanity. The derech of humanity is they cannot leave Klal Yisrael alone. They cannot bear, the world can't bear that Jews have such, again, it hurts us to say because we'd like to think that the world has changed and we all love each other and there's no anti-Semitism and everybody loves us, and clearly again that illusion has been blown to smithereens, right? You see that that's no longer the case. And again, it's actually very affirming. It's the same way. The world can't, for some reason, can't be so well that Jews have something. All the more so that Jews can defend themselves, that Jews can stand up for themselves. Right? So again, so we come from Alexander the Great, Canaan is ours. Now, what's the claim? The Sid, and again, they bring it right from the Torah. These are from Africans. The Sid, Eretz Canaan is it says that the land of Canaan included all of the boundaries, Well, Canaan, so therefore they looked at Canaan as part of essentially Africa. They had Africa. Canaan is included in this as well. Well, Canaan, Canaan is our father, right? Remember again, Canaan becomes the father of Cush, of Ham. So the Africans say this is our father. So because again it's our father, we own this land. So as I saw again, so this was the claim. Now again, this was a claim brought before Alexander the Great. The Jews have to now defend their claim to Eretz Canaan, Eretz Yisrael. So the Rebbe is when he says, let me argue this case on behalf of the Jewish people. Now watch this. Right? Like in the next week, so if I lose, the good thing is there's really no harm because they could just say, apparently will say, what you see in these stories is Gavia ben Pesisa was not recognized as one of the ranking sages. That wasn't his identity. Therefore, he says, if I lose the case, not a big deal, because whatever, you could just say, he wasn't really representing us, right? You just say, right? The Africans, they defeated just a regular guy. And if I win the case, Amru Bahan, say, Torah's motion exactly. The victory will not be attributed to me, that all of the victory will be attributed to Torah. Which will say, by the way, just you begin to see the beauty and the power of the personality of Gavia ben Pesisa, that all of this was literally about Torah. This is about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Rabbi Sisa saw himself as an ambassador of the Ribono Shel Olam. If I lose, the loss is mine. But if I win, the win is the Ribono Shel Olam. Incredibly selfless. Okay, so that's the just okay, so he gets permission from the Rabbanim. He represents Kaiser Pandit Alexander the Great. So he says to the Africans, where are you bringing the proof from? We just said it. Canaan is cursed, and Canaan. So again, Hebron is here.
Yo, how are you?
The children of Canaan. Canaan was cursed. Canaan are Avon. If an Evan acquires property, what is property to? The law owed. Not only that, Elishari Kamishonim Lo Abaratanu. So furthermore, again, you guys owe us back wages, back service. Why? Because we're the slaves to Klal Yisrael, and what? You have not been working for years. So not only do you not own land, right, but we own you, and you owe us back wages, back payment for all of your delinquent service. Okay. So what happened?
How are you, big dog?
Alexander Malka, So Alexander,
Greeny G, how are you?
What say you? You know what's your response? So they said to Alexander,
Greeny, how'd you find out about me?
Give us 3 days to come back with an answer. He gave them the time, but so ultimately they searched. But they
how'd you find out about me?
So the Africans ran away. And what happened? They knew
where?
They left finally. Listen, I hear this interesting. So apparently, again, they were living in Canaan. Right there, they were living there. But again, they had no claim. They recognized they had no claim, so they left. They ran away.
Oh, you found out about me from Tick?
And leading vineyards. And the Gemara says, the Osa Shana.
Oh, very well. Excellent, man.
Oh, it's a Shemitah here.
Yeah, I know who did it.
So not only did Klal Yisrael succeed, but ultimately, again, Klal Yisrael went ahead and
I know who
themselves, even during the Shemitah year. So let's say, so again, what's the yesod with this? Like, it's a fascinating story. What's the takeaway message? Be bashful.
Oh, that I don't know.
Apologetic about what is ours. What is ours? We have very little in this world, but the little bit that we have is ours, and we should not be ashamed to defend it, and we should not be ashamed to assert our ownership over it, nor should we be apologetic about the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave it to us and did not give it to others. When Jews are apologetic, so ultimately, again, that weakness is exploited and pounced upon. When Jews are proud, when Jews are direct, and when Jews assert their sovereignty over that which is ours, that is when things come together. Number 2, when you do things not for self-serving, egotistic, or egocentric purposes, but you do things for HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's when things work.
You are what?
I want to point something out, by the way. If you think about it, it's interesting to note.
All right,
like,
well, that's cool.
Came with like a whole shekel over here. Right? Well, welcome to my Torah. I'd like to thank my parents. So this, it says in the Rabbi, it says in the Evan Azalana, he doesn't know, he calls it pasuk. Like, it's not a complicated drasha. Why couldn't other people come up with this? I don't know what the answer is, but on a very simple level, Gavi Ben Besisa made a very simple idea. This is not about me. This is about the Ribono Shel Olam. When you do things for the right purposes, specifically for the kavod of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, things come together. Be unapologetic about what is ours.
How's your fantasy football team doing, dog?
Right purposes, and things come together. Next.
How's your fantasy football team doing?
So once again, now the Egyptians brought a court case. Let's say this is literally, again, we think it's new things that, like, nations of the world bring legal proceedings against the Jewish people. It's not true. The Africans did it. And it was, again, like, who right?
Yo, dog, I'm still here. Don't worry.
Just fascinating, just to see how the world is so circular, right? Who was at the forefront of the claims of genocide against the state of Israel? South Africa. Just pointing out, just you see certain things. They just are the way.
Do you know who Joey Diaz is?
They are. And while it's nice to think that the world changes, It really does.
Do you know who Joey Diaz is?
The world very much stays the same,
That's okay.
especially in its hatred for Klal Yisrael. So
Shit happens,
next
man.
court case. Who else now comes before Alexander the Great? Egypt. Amro, Harinu Omer.
That's right. No big deal.
Omer. Bashem Nasan Eschina Ama Beinei Yitzchak. V'Hashilum. Tenu Lanu Kesev is
All right, well, you're always welcome
so
here.
the Egyptians come. Now, by the way, this actually is a pretty good claim, right? So the pasuk says when we left Mitzrayim, the pasuk says in your Yoma coming up to Pesach, the pasuk says Hashem gave favor of Klal Yisrael in the eyes of the Egyptians by Yashilum. Now, Vayashilum literally means they borrowed.
You can write?
They borrowed. Now, there's different ways to interpret that word. Some say they asked, right? Others say
What
it
do you
means
mean?
borrowed. Now, the Egyptians are clearly coming with the idea that it means borrowed, which means Klal Yisrael borrowed a whole lot of silver and gold from the Egyptians. So the Egyptians say,
It's on
"Sorry
YouTube.
to lend it to you, right? We'd like our
No, I don't
stuff
speak
back.
Spanish.
We'd like our stuff back." Okay.
No.
So the Gemara says, Amar Gavir ben Pesisa. So Gavir ben Pesisa says, "L'chachamim truly rishus ve'elech ba'adoni mine." Like Alexander. So Gavir ben Pesisa says, "Do me a favor. Do me a favor." It says to the rabbis, "I'll deal with this. Give me rishus. I'll deal with it."
Yep, I'm a streamer. I'm on YouTube.
Amru lahem had yod shevachem nitzachtem. So if I'm successful, I'm sorry. If they are victorious,
Correct.
if they win the case over me,
Yeah.
So again,
Go in this stream in the upper left-hand corner. You'll see a red circle.
He's just a regular guy.
It says 24/7 YouTube streams. Click that, it'll take you to my streams.
Then ultimately, again, the glory will be given not to me, but the glory will be given ultimately again to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so Gavir ben Pesisa shows up for Beis Din, and he adjudicates.
I'm on all of them, but I'm on all of them, but YouTube.
Egyptians, what's your right? What's your proof?
Correct.
So again, the Egyptians, we told you, Vayashilum, you borrowed stuff from us. So okay, Shkoyach, happy to have liked it to you. Now you want to stuff back. So which Gavir ben Pesisa says,
Shout out to Kick, baby. They love me. I'm like their fucking long lost son.
The Jews were in Egypt for 430 years. Now 430 years, remember again, that's the
Oh, you've been doing it a month?
So
That's tight.
they're for 430 years. Tinu lanu schar avoda shel shishim
All right, well, good job, man.
mitzrayim shloshim va'arba me'oz shana. So Gavir ben Pesisa says, "Chaver, no problem. If you want
Good
to make
job. Yeah,
an
you've been
accounting,
doing it a
how do
month.
we make
That's
an
great.
accounting? You say we owe you the gold and silver that we borrowed. Okay, you also owe us back wages for 600,000
is this what I do?
men who
Yeah,
worked
this is
for
what I do.
430 years. Let's just, let's do some forensic accounting over here, right? Let's go. Let's settle up. Let's settle up back wages for 430 years for 500,000 people.
I'm
and
a
we're happy to
certified
go
project
ahead
management
and settle up
professional.
with you. So what happens? Some of them, Alexander Mokdon, Hexir Lachuba. So Alexander says to the Egyptians, okay, so what do you have to say? Amulo, Tenu Lonasman Shloshianu. So give us 3 days, we'll come back. So Nasan Shlosha, Nasan Allaham Isman, Batkula Matzah Shuva. So ultimately, again, they searched for 3 days, they couldn't find an answer. Miyad, Pinichu Sadosayan, Kishin Zeros, the Karmei Kishin Netuos, Ubarchu. They left behind the fields, right? The laden fields, laden vineyards, but also Shona Shviyasaisa, and it was a Shemitah year. Incredible. So the Jews had the benefit of this. I just want to point out something very interesting. Why is it that both the Africans and the Egyptians run away? Right? Why don't come back, be a man, right? And say, you know what, we don't have an answer. But I will say, because here's the difference. At the end of the day, when you're arguing for MS, if you don't have an answer, you can come back and you can say, you're right, I'm sorry, I don't have an answer. When you recognize that what you're doing is smoke and mirrors, and only an attempt to rob people of what is rightfully theirs, you don't even have the backbone to show back up in court. And that's what they were teaching us over here. These weren't real claims, right? Because if you have a real claim, again, listen, in every court case, someone wins, someone loses. That's the way it works. Again, all you want is just a fair shake, recognizing you might win, you might lose. When you can't even show back up, when you can't even show your face again, when you can't even follow back up, that shows the emptiness of your claims to begin with. So profound.
Yo, big dog.
Is incredible. Okay, so this is great. So everybody is jumping on the bandwagon over here. So who comes? Sons of Yishmael, Beniktura, Lodun im Yisrael, just Moto. So what's Yishmael's claim? What's that? Eretz Canaan Shalanu. Okay, yeah, let's do this, right? Let's do this, right? So Bnei Yishmael say Eretz Canaan is ours. So what happened? Now, here's what's interesting. Yishmael comes with a different claim. They say Eretz Yisrael Shalanu v'Shalachem, right? So it's interesting. Yishmael in this context says we're not saying it's solely ours. We're saying it's also ours. Now this is very different, right? Africans claimed all ours, right? Canaan claimed, right? Mitzrayim wanted back wages, right? They wanted money, right? At the end of the day, so it's interesting. Yishmael, we're going to see why Yishmael is claiming this. So Yishmael says we're not claiming it's all ours. We're just claiming we're partners in it. We're partners in it. Why? So the Gemara says. So again, what's Yishmael's claim? By the way, Yishmael's claim is not a bad claim, right? What's Yishmael's claim? We're also children of Avram. We're also children of Avram. The land was given to Avram. We too are the children of Avram. So why should we not have a share in Eretz Canaan? So once again, I'm going to give you this is a chum. So once again, we gave the psisa. Camera, let me do this. I'll judge it. I'll adjudicate it. Not adjudicate. I'll argue it. Any not schuni, I'm going to have those shavacham nitzachtem. Ve'imani achavani ve'imani anatzach osam. Amar lahem toras Moshe Rabbeinu nitzachtem. Right? So ultimately, again, so she says, if I lose, I defeated the commoner. If I win, it's Torah that has won the victory. So what happens? So he says to the Yishmael, what's your ayah? What's your proof? So again, we just quoted it. We are also the children of Avram Avinu. Avram gave everything he owned to Yitzchak. And Avram gave the children of the concubines, B'nai Keturah, he gave them matanos. And then it says, Vayishalachem me'al Yitzchak b'no. He sent them away. So the Gemara says, Nasan Avram, so the Gemara says, Nasan Avram, Av shenasan agatem levana b'chayim, v'shigaz me'al zeh, klum yish lazeh al zeh klum. If a father gives gifts to a son and then sends that son away, does the sent away son have any?
All right, my friend, I'm going to get some sleep.
Of course not. Essentially, what the living sisters are saying, what are you guys talking about?
I'm going to go to bed, dude.
Other sons of the concubines.
Get to sleep.
And then what did he do? He sent away.
Take care, man. You're welcome anytime.
This is yours. I love you. I do love you. Right? I've told you so before.
Listen.
Look at this. I love them both. Yishmael, I love you. And that's why I'm giving you stuff. And I'm sending you away. You have the best thing in Yitzchak. So the Gemara says as follows. My matanos, by the way, one of the matanos, give them sorcery. So the Gemara says, therefore, again, interestingly enough, I want to point out, what's fascinating about that story is if you notice, the conversation ends there. Right? It's not like the Egyptians say, Yishmael says, we need 3 days in order to come back. Yudhiyah ben Pasisa's raya was so compelling. It was like a mic drop. That was it. That was the end of the story right then and there. Yes, your father is the son of Avram Avinu. And Avram loved your father as well. But Avram gave your father gifts. He gave him stuff, and then he sent them away. When a father sends a son away, that means he doesn't want the second son to have anything to do with the first son. Hashem did not want Yitzchak, and Avram did not want Yitzchak and Yishmael. Actually, remember, Avram did want Yitzchak and Yishmael to go up together. Sarah didn't. Hashem said to Avram, listen to Sarah. So therefore, again, the Yudhiyah says, you have no chilek to have Yishmael. You have Yishmael. You have no chilek in Eretz Yisrael. That's the end of the story. If you notice, by according to this version of the story, Yishmael accepts it. There's no, let us get back to you, and the story is over. Absolutely incredible. All right, folks, we'll have to. This might be a new rack. Okay, we're fine. I'm going to stop over here for today. Again, listen, let me ask you, could we possibly go any faster? We can't go any faster. There's too much we can start earlier. I'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up in Yom Tov on the bottom of Tzaddik Aleph tomorrow. More incredible, dramatic, and overwhelming Gemara. Shkayach, everyone.
The writing, I don't assume takes, only a few minutes. So, but it's also just time and mental. mental energy, and I can tell you guys want to go really well. And then secondly, the show to me comes from the fact that you're very detached and you take this approach of like, what else you have the entertained by it, and some people cross over into this like anger and contempt and actual bitterness. And to me, it's hard to do comedy from that place.
Yeah, we don't want to be like that. It's all fun and games for us. Yeah, and honestly, we're standing on, as I said before, we're standing on the shoulders of giants.
All right, ROTHSCHILD. Good morning, good morning. Let us begin by thanking all of our sponsors for this morning show. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for Avshin Pei. Hey, it's also Mishpach of Eretz for dedicating all the Shuman Joshua's this year as he's host for Besoros Tovos for Israel. Our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Hadar. Havalim Latova Tari and Steve Zinn, loving memory of Tari's father, Dr. Harry Kahn, C. Hirsch, Ben Yosef HaKohen, and the Ziv, Levin, and Berman families in memory of Mr. William Ziv, Ziv Ben Shmuel Yisrael Zichron Zachayot, and merit of our Talmud Torah. All of the Neshama Sadnaviyah, the families in the Chama, all those who are full Shabbat, Kevin, Kol Yisrael, Hashem Shemes, Hashem bring home all of our hostages and allow our holy soldiers to be successful. With that, let us begin. Today's daf is Tzadik Aleph 91. We have a steep climb here, but we're going to make it. We're picking up on Tzadik on days 90. I got to count down from the top. So we are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, about 12 lines down from the top. So again, you should be sure they thought the following. Let's just remember again, we're in the sugya of trying to find some type of scriptural allusion to Tchias HaMesim. Right? From where that's just missing the Torah. So what we ended off with yesterday is a pasuk that says, "Unisatem mimenu es trumas Hashem Aaron HaKohen." You shall give truma to Aaron. Now, I will say it's very interesting. Aaron received many things in life. The one thing he never ever received was truma. Why? Because truma only goes into effect when you go into Eretz Yisrael, and Aaron never made it into Eretz Yisrael. So at the end of the day, what could this mean? That ultimately, again, you give truma to Aaron. So remember again, it must be that the pasuk means that Tchias HaMesim. So the Gemara says, the Gemara goes right. Very short time, Aaron to Aaron. So what does it mean? We have to give truma to someone like Aaron. Meaning what? Ma Aaron chaver achban of chaver. Just like Aaron is a chaver, right? Just like Aaron again is a Talmid Chacham, and therefore knows how to go ahead and deal with truma in the appropriate way. So too again, in general, we have to give to other chaver. How do you know that you can't give truma to a kohen who is ignorant? שנאמר, ליעם ביושי ירושלים לא says, Manas L'Kohen Levin L'man Yachzeku B'Toras Hashem. Because again, the way the Pasuk phrases it is, you give the Kohanim truma that they should be strong in the Torah of the Ribono Shel Olam. Whoever is holding literally again the Torah of the Ribono Shel Olam, Yesh Lo Manas has a portion in truma. V'She'ino Machzik B'Toras Hashem. And whoever is not holding strong in the Torah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in Lo Manas, does not have a portion. And I will say, this, as we're going to see, this is not as much punitive as it is just very important because Truma has a lot of details, Truma has a lot of obligations, and misuse of Truma can bring with us. That penalty along with it. Whoever gives Truma to a kohen who is an Amaretz, to the Nostan Lefnei Ari, it's as if he gives it to a lion. Ma'ari Safik Dori Solchal, Safik in a Dori Solchal. When you put food in front of a lion, there's a Safik. Will it tear it apart and eat it or not? Af Kohen Amaretz, Safik Ochla B'Taro, Safik Ochla B'Tuma. So again, when you give something, you give Truma to a kohen Amaretz, a Safik. Will he eat it in a state of ritual purity? Will he eat it in a state of ritual impurity? And Yochanan says, "Afkorim lo misa." If one gives truma to a kohen Amaretz, he's causing the death of that kohen. How is that? So Shneimar u'meisu o kiyechalulim. Because also, as mentioned before, that misuse of truma results in death penalties. You give truma to a kohen who doesn't know how to treat it with the appropriate sanctity. It's as if the number one is causing death to that particular kohen. You even cause the point of violating of Shneimar. See also of an Asher Ba'achalas Kachem. So what's really fascinating about all of this is, and just a generally interesting motif, how Again, in these cases, you would think that giving truma to the Kohen, of course, is an objective chesed. So giving truma to the Kohen is only a chesed. There's only something good if the Kohen knows what to do with it. If he doesn't know how to handle the gift, then not only is it not a chesed, but in fact it's a liability for him. Tremendously sold in life as well. About when you give, it could be a sort of parenting, about giving children things. It's a beautiful bracha for a parent to give children something, as long as what? The child knows how to handle it. To give a child something, it's a big yesod in technology, big yesod in many areas. To give a child something like an objective in life that they don't know what to do with it. It's not the parental gift, but instead it's creating tremendous liability. It goes like this. Kind of, when Gemara says, where do we find, again, a biblical allusion to Tchias HaMesim? Shnei Amar, the Ganav HaKimosi as Pisi is very interesting. Itam Laseis Lohem as Eres Kinan. The pasuk says, and I will uphold my bris, my covenant with them, to give to them, Lahem, to them, right? Because Lachem Lo Ne'amar Ela Lahem. This is very interesting. The pasuk doesn't say it. The pasuk doesn't say, no, I'm upholding my covenant to give you Lachem. Rather, it says Lahem, to them. Who is to them? If you look at Rashi, this is Rashi on the right side, about halfway down, actually a little bit more than halfway down. Ela Lahem, the Mashma Shekiach HaKadosh Baruch Hu La'Avosenu, Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, Sheyitin Lahem Eretz Yisrael. So the pasuk in Sisar is such an interesting way to read this pasuk that again, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu was talking to Am Yisrael who was alive at the time, it would use the lashon of what? Of lachem, to you. Lachem means to them. Who's the them? The Gemara understands it's referring to Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. To give birth to Am Yisrael, Yaakov, they were dead. They were long dead about the time HaKadosh came into Egypt. God came into his kingdom. I rather what do you see? But ultimately, again, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov will receive as Israel. What does that show you? Yes, amazing. Yes, amazing. So the Gemara says, you get fine. Beautiful. Shalom means something on the up. Listen to this. The meaning now, please, I mean, it's like an apicot, someone who doesn't believe. Now, truth is very interesting. What we're going to do, in fact, we really refer to different levels of heretics, or I should say, people who don't believe in certain things. So we'll see the distinctions. Shalom means something on the up. So the meaning is something on the up. You might check it from the Kaimation, from where do you give us some brings back the dead, Amalahem, Minat Torah, Minat Ziyim, Minat Ksufas. Incredible. Gamliel says, I'm going to bring you a proof from Torah, Ziyim, and Ksufas. Now, all of Gamliel's proofs, they rejected. We'll see what happens. Minat Torah. So, number one, what's the right in Minat Torah? The Sid, and Eresh Shalom Moshe, Incha, Shokef, Imavusecha, Dekam. This is pretty explicit. As Hashem says to Moshe, you are going to literally again die. You're going to live with your forefathers to come. And you are going to arise. Wow, pretty explicit. So how did they disprove it? No. They said, Gamliel, you are putting the comma in the wrong place. Amrulo, the Dilma, the Kam Ha'am Hazeh, Zana. No. The pasuk is as follows. Moshe, you're going to die. And after you die, the Kam Ha'am Hazeh, Zana. The people are going to rebel. When you die, the people worship idolatry. The Vakam is not going on Moshe, but rather the Vakam is going on who? On the people. Incredible. So okay, so they rejected that first. Next, Minanavim. What's the proof from Nabi? It said, "You Moisecha Muvasi Komu Hakitu Vanenu Shochne Afar Kital Oros Talecha Be'eres Lefaim Tipa." So what's the shit? In this pasuk, what do you see with this phrase? The phrase you see, Kakitu Veranenu Shochne Afar. Those who sleep in the dust will once again wake up. Hakitu Veranenu, and will sing praise to Hashem. That's a pretty clear statement. The Doma makes him Shefi Yecheskel. Maybe that's referring to the dead that Yecheskel brought back to life. Who did Yecheskel bring back to life? That's the Atzamos Salvation, right? That's the value of dry bones. So that's a specific episode you're going to. Next, Minat Ksuvim, from Ksuvim, that says, V'chikecha kiyayin atov, holich l'dodi v'nesharim, dovavei sifsei yishim. See, everyone says the pasuk. Yeah, the pasuk makes reference in Shir Hashirim. Literally, again, that phrase, Dovave Sifsei Yishanim. The lips of those who sleep will move. Sleep, a reference to death. Lips, they will move, meaning a reference to the idea that once again they'll speak. So the meaning says, for Yochanan, the meaning said true. The meaning maybe that's referring to the fact that sometimes the lips of the dead move in the grave. Now, when do the lips of the dead move in the grave? So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. Whenever, when a person dies, if someone says over halacha. Now, by the way, halacha doesn't just have to mean the halacha. What that means is when a person dies and someone says over a piece of their Torah in this world, the deceased's lips move in the grave. So the Gemara says, I'm sorry. So really, really beautiful idea. First of all, this idea that when a person reads over Torah, a person reads over lessons for their families, a person reads over Yisodos that are said over even after they are no longer alive, by definition, it gives them a continued keel, a continued life, a continued eternality in this world. So a person dies, someone says over the Torah, someone says over the saints, someone says over the Yisodos, the lips move in the grave. Incredible. So the meaning did not believe anything that Rabbi Gamliel said until Rabbi Gamliel gave them over the following idea. What was the following idea? Hashem lavosehem, laseis lahem. So again, reference that that Hashem has sworn to give over to you. Now, I should say to them. It doesn't say Hashem is giving it over to you. Rather, what does it say? Ela lahem, to them. So from here you see ultimately again a reference to Tchias HaMeisim min HaTorah. Incredible, because once again, the giving over to them. Who's the them? The assumption is this is Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So from here you see an explicit allusion to this idea that Hashem, that again the dead will come back to life. Incredible. Others say, I'm going to look from different pasuk. We'll say this is so beautiful. V'atem hadveikim b'Hashem Elokechem, chayim kulchem hayom. Others say that it's from this passage. Now, literally translated, what does it mean? And you who cling to Hashem, your God, right? Chayim kulchem hayom. So as soon as you're going to translate this, you will live fully today, or you are fully alive today. So it says the Gemara Pshita, L'chaim Kolchem Hayom. That's obvious. Moshe Rabbeinu is talking to them, so of course they're alive today. Ela afilu b'yom shechol ha'olam kulam meisim atem chayim. Even at a time when everyone else is dead, you will be alive. So the idea, the way the Gemara is reading this passage is, ultimately, again, you who cling to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, chayim kulchem hayom. Hayom means you will come back to life. That even on a day where everyone else is dead, you will come back to life. Such a beautiful and incredible yisod. So the Gemara was like, Shalom, there's much to say about that passage as well, but if we have time, I'll come back to it later. Shalom, Rabbi as Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya. So ultimately, again, the Romans asked Yoshua ben Chananya, what are they asking? So they asked Yoshua ben Chananya a two-pronged question. Number one, how do we know there's resurrection of the dead? And number two, how do we know that Hashem knows what's going to happen? Two-pronged question. So ultimately, again, Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya says, I can answer both of those questions from one pasuk. So again, Rabbi Yoshua ben Chananya read the pasuk, Moshe, you're going to die, become, and you're going to come back to life. So from here you see a remez to Tchias HaMeisim. So the Gemara says, they said back to him, V'dilma, V'kama amazeh v'zana. Okay, Moshe, that's not how to read the pasuk. The way you read the pasuk is that ultimately Moshe, you're going to die. The V'kam doesn't go on Moshe's resurrection. Rather, what does V'kam go on? V'kam goes on ultimately, again, the Klal are going to rebel. Amr Lahu. So Rabbi Shimon said, fine, even if you say that, at least in the Kutum Yapalga Biadechu, Yodema Asha Asalios. So again, even if you're not going to use this concept as a remnant of Chesanesim, you could at least use it for what? As a remnant, as a scriptural proof that Hashem knows what's going to happen. Right? Because again, here Hashem is saying to Moshe, you're going to die, and when you die, Klal Yisrael is going to rebel. Okay, incredible. So the Gemara says, "It's my name. You're going to show me Yochai. Dinash Kishwahu Mechai Nisim Yodemash Asadios." So he said, "The Yochanan asked Moshe, how do I know Shmuel is going to bring back the dead? And how do I know that Hashem knows what is going to happen?" Shneimar Kincha Shochet Imavosecha Vikam. Ultimately, again, Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you are going to die, but you will come back. Incredible. So the Gemara goes like this. Tanya, Amra Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, B'davar Ziyafti Sifrei Minim. So Rabbi Eliezer says like this: in this matter, the books of the heretics have really been, they have forgeries. They have forgeries. How so? Shehayu Omrim. Remember again, because these books of heresy said there is no resurrection. There is no resurrection. I said to them, Siyaftem Torastem, velo ha'elisem biyadchem klei. So number one, you've forged the Torah, and it didn't work. So what's going on over here? Sha'atem omrim ein tches ha'nisim Torah, for you claim there is no tches ha'nisim, and yet it says, Hayu Omer, Tikaris hanefesh ha'im avonava. So we'll say there is a double lashon of Tikaris. Why is it double lashon? The Gemara says, I'm sorry. So we'll say what Hikaris means that the sin will be cut off from this world. Avonaba, its sin will remain with it. When is that? Lavi Olamaba does not refer to the world to come. So from there you see ultimately again Raya for Tkesamesim. So the Gemara says, Tikaris, good. Let me start that. So I understand why can't you learn both that out from Tikaris? Tikaris in Olam Hazeh, Tikaris the Olam Haba, to which the Gemara says, Haba Amrilei, Dibra Torah Karashom and the Adam. Because if I would have said that, then the meaning would have said, no, that's just a colloquial expression. Okay? Keep an eye. So what says, Makmol Gesharon. Tikaris, Olam Hazeh, Tikaris, Olam Haba, the Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva understands the double lashon. Tikaris, be cut off in this world. Tikaris in the world to come. The Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel. Balot Kvar Ne'amar, Es Hashem, Umigadeh, Nichvasah. But the pasuk says that he's blaspheming Hashem, will be cut off. Because he's Shlosha Olamim Yesh. Are there three worlds? In other words, then that means that there's three expressions of being cut off. So what's going on over here? So the says, rather, Elo v'nichvasa olam hazeh, will be cut off in this world. He carries the olam haba. Right? He carries be cut off in the world to come. And he carries dibra Torah kalashom b'nei adam. This refers to the Torah speaks. Okay? Bein Rabbi Shmuel ben Rabbi Akiva, avona ba my akidei. But both Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel, what do you do with the phrase of avona ba? Look at this saying, this is beautiful. Yachal afilu asa tshuva. You might have thought that the sin would be cut off even if he did tshuva. So the Gemara says, Talmud Lomar avona ba. When is the sinner cut off? Only when? When it's avona ba. When the sin remains within him. However, the Gemara says, Lo amarti ella bishman shavona ba. The only time the sinner is cut off is when the sin remains with him. But if the sinner does tshuva, then ultimately again he is not cut off. Incredible. Both sides. So really fascinating. So again, with the point that you begin to see is, like we mentioned yesterday, there's no one pasuk that says there's tchias hamesim. Rather, what we have is a series of biblical, I should say, Tanakh allusions. It's not right. Biblical allusions. Torah, Rabbi, Mitzuvim, different allusions, different hints, different ideas. Beautiful. Let's go right. We're finished there. Let's do this Gemara. Shala Cleopatra Malchasa Esrabiner. Wow. Queen Cleopatra asked the following question of Rabbi Meir. Amra said, by the way, just so you should know, Marshall points this out. Cleopatra is the queens, what Paro is the kings. So this is Yeah, I think he's starting to refer to Cleopatra as a particular person, but this is more a monarchical. Rabbi Shas says we see this from different usages in Shas. This is more a monarchical title than anything else. But anyway, it's pretty cool. So Cleopatra asks Rabbi Meir, Amra, Yedana Dechayi Shefri. So listen to this. She said, I know that the dead will come back to life. I'm sorry. I know that the living die. I'm sorry. I know that the living will come back to life. So Cleopatra said, it's interesting, right? Cleopatra, I believe in Tchias Mason. Incredible. I know that the dead will come back to life. Goes to the pasuk, because again, the pasuk says that literally they will sprout forth from the city, as reference to Yerushalayim, like the grass comes out of the earth. So once again, it's interesting. This pasuk was actually not quoted in our previous conversations, but Cleopatra quotes this pasuk. From Tehillim. Right? So I know that the dead will come back to life. So what's the shayla? Ella kishein omdin arumin obemabushein omdin. Fascinating. When the dead come back to life, do they come back unclothed, or do they come back clothing? Incredible. So Amrullah, so Rameir says back to Cleopatra, Kavachomer mechita, make a kavachomer from a grain of wheat. How so? So the Gemara says, Umachita shenikpara. So the kita, right? The grain is buried unclothed. What does that mean? When you plant wheat kernels, when you plant the seed, it's just the seed. There's nothing else but the seed. And yet yotza become a lavushin. Yet it comes out with many layers of clothing. Now, what does that mean? Many layers of clothing. What it means is again the kernel itself it has many layers. It has a husk. It has different things on top of it. So you see from here again, just like the seed goes into the earth unclothed, ultimately again it comes out with many layers. So the Gemara says, Tzadikim shenik barim b'levushein, but Tzadikim ultimately again, who are buried with their clothing, Allah has kama v'kama. Now Tzaddik ultimately again is buried now, not just clothing, but crowns. So the tzaddik who's buried with clothing, all the more so, he will come out clothed as well. So we'll say, it's such a, see, first of all, you could just say stam, it's just like a fascination question. But then again, I believe in the resurrection of the dead. How exactly does this work? When the dead come out of the grave, what is it? Unclothed, clothed? So we'll say, what's interesting also is it could very well be clothing. We've seen this before, it's often a metaphor also for accomplishments. Right? You're begotten, right? The Shlomo says in Mishlei, at all times let your clothing be white. Let your clothing be white. So clothing represents accomplishment. So it could very well be that what Cleopatra was really asking was the following. When there is Tchias HaMesim, how do you come back? How are you reborn? Are you reborn like tabla rasa, right? Naked, unclothed, like new life, new person, mamish, like a new baby being born to cut on shinola dami? Or is your resurrected life somehow a continuity of your previous life? Are you born with your clothing? In other words, do you come back? And again, I have my meisim clothing. I have my mitzvah. So again, it's a fascinating question. Is resurrection a continuation of my previous life? So I come back with my clothing? Or again, am I born unclothed? Is it a brand new life? To which Rabbi Meir responds, resurrected life is a continuity of previous life. Which I must say is so fascinating because what that does is it really urges us to maximize the life we have here in this world. Because the way I live here not only impacts me in this world, not only impacts me in what we'll call Olam Haba, which is the place where I go after I die, but it even impacts me in resurrected life as well. Everything I do in this world follows me in the multiple stages and iterations of my life. Such a profound Gemara. So the Caesar says Rabbi Gamliel, Caesar de Gamliel, I heard that you guys say that the dead come back to life. Okay, so it's interesting. So as opposed to Cleopatra, who believed in Tchias HaMesim, but just has some detailed questions about it. So you see already that the Caesar doesn't believe it. Caesar doesn't. So Caesar says, I don't understand. You guys say, you guys say the Shakli Chayil, the dead will come back to life. I don't understand how that works. Havu Afra, Va'afra Mikachayil. The dead ultimately again become dust, right? And dust can't come back to life. Dust can't come back to life. So the Gemara says, top of Tzadik Alf 91a, Amrulu Darte, Shafke V'Anamahaja. Again, these images are fascinating. So the daughter of the Caesar said to Rabbi Gamliel, I got this, right? She wanted to answer this particular question. Okay, so she said, so Abani Mahajra, second line, Tzadik Alpha, base 91A, second line in. Shnei Yotzim Yishbirin. There are two people, two fashioners, creators of stuff. Right? Pottery people. Yesh Be'irenu, right? Rashi says over here, Shnei Yotzim Be'irenu, Achazot Zekilim Minamai. They create utensils. Two people create utensils. One creates utensils from water, and one creates utensils from clay. So Eiza Mehen Neshuba, who's better? To which the Caesar responds, and of course, Amalei, in this creates from clay. Amalei, she said to him, fashions people from water. Now, what does that mean, water? It's a reference to Zera, to the drop of semen, which creates a baby. So if Baruch creates human life from literally minor, from water, then Allah has kama v'kama, he can create it from dirt. In other words, right, it's a greater feat to create utensils from water than it is from clay. Then everyone agrees you can create utensils from clay. HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes ahead and creates life, ultimately again from water, could certainly go ahead and create life from clay, from dirt as well. The name of Yishmael Tana, Kavachomer Miklis Chufis. This is beautiful. You can make a Kavachomer from the creation of glass. The creation of glass, it's Ches Anisim. Maklis Chufis, Sha'amalon, Beruach, Basar V'dam. How is glass made? You blow glass. Glass is made through the breath of man. And Nishparu Yeshlan Takana. And even if glass breaks, you could melt it down and you could refashion it. Man who is made with the breath of Hashem. Right? Hashem blew life into us. Allah has kama. All the more so that if it breaks, so to speak, and dies, it can be put back together. That's a profound tomorrow. Amar Yahu, Nino Rabbi Ami. So I'll say, also there's so much to say on each of these Gemaras, because each of these statements are tremendous metaphors for different aspects of our lives. But again, I underline this, so we'll come back to it at some point in the year. So there was a particular non-believer, Min, who said to Rabbi Ami, Amisu, you say the Shachvi Chaye. You guys say that the dead come back to life. So the Gemara says, but the dead turn to dust. And how can dust possibly come back to life? Let me give you a mashal. The Melech Basar Adam, Shamal Avalas. I'll give you a mashal. There was once a human king, and the human king said to his servants, go and build me a palace. There's only one problem. There's no water, there's no dirt in the place where I need you to build a palace. I need you to figure it out. And Baruch Hashem, the subjects were able to figure it out. They built the king a beautiful palace. The young man, sometime later, the palace fell down. So the king says to the subjects, I want you to rebuild the palace, but this time I want you to build in a place where there is water and there is dirt. And the subject said, we can't do it, we're unable to do it. So the king got very angry at them. So the king said, I don't understand. You were able to build a palace when there was no water and dirt. You were able to pull it off. Now that I'm giving you water and dirt, you can't pull it off. So we'll say, what's the nishal? HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates man from nothing. Yesh man, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world from nothing. So if HaKadosh Baruch Hu was created from nothing, then even when man turns back into dirt is still something. If you can create from nothing, you certainly can create from something. That was the answer about Tchias HaNesim. And if you don't believe without this idea of something turning into something else, say go out into the valley, or see this particular type of rodent Shayom Chatzia Basar Chatzia Adama. So most of there's a lot of discussion exactly about what they're talking about, what Chazal is talking about over here is rodent, that apparently is half flesh and half earth. The next day, ultimately, again, it becomes completely flesh. So you see the ability of things to transform from earth into flesh. Shema Tamar Lazmamiru, but maybe you'll say it takes a lot of time for this rodent to have this transformation. Allah Lahar, go up onto the mountain, first wide line, Ure'ei Shayom in Bo Chilazon, Ela Chilazon Echad. And see in this particular mountain that on this day there's only one Chilazon. Remember again, Chilazon is that feature from which the Tcheles is created. So you go up on the mountain, there's one Chilazon. Amachar Yardu Bishamim, the next day it'll rain, then Esmale Kulo Chilzonos. Ultimately, the mountain will be filled with Chilazons. So again, the idea over here is number one, that earth could turn